It's now 6 o'clock. Pastor Dan, would you please give the invocation?
Good evening. I'd like to read from Jeremiah 29, beginning in verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord. So I just pray wisdom to prosper this city. I pray for a prosperous future for Freeport. I thank you, Lord, that you know the plans that you have for Freeport. I pray for health and safety in every home. I pray for respect and honor in every home. And because of the strength and honor, I pray peace and joy in every home. I pray, Lord, that you prosper the families of all the city officials. Keep them safe, Lord, and as we thank them for their service. Lord, even tonight, I pray for healthy discussions and innovative solutions. In Jesus I pray.
Thank you. So now we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Clem,
Here.
McClanathan,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Busker is absent, Brashaw,
Here.
Keister,
Here.
and Berberay.
Here.
Would you please stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Parker? And then, Council, if we could have just a short amendment to the agenda this evening. We have an SBA presentation, just a short presentation concerning the loans that are available. And so if we could amend that to be immediately following public comment, that would just help them to be able to get their information out there. So for an amended version on the agenda, please.
Thank you.
Do you need a motion then for that? All right, I'd make that motion to amend the agenda to incorporate that right after public comments.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the agenda by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Ross. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. So Alderman Parker, it's your meeting.
We need the approval of the amended agenda. Have a motion on that?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Keister, second by Alderwoman Brashaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Next, on the approval of the minutes from the Committee of a Whole meeting held on April 8th, 2019. Do we have a motion on that?
So move.
Second. Moved by Alderman Keister, second by Alderman Ross. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Chair?
Public comments.
Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. In regards to public comments, I took a look at the sheet. It looked like there was maybe 10 or so individuals that were signed in. Our rules usually allow 6. Given the discussion with some of the council members in regards to wanting to make sure that we have a good public input on this topic, and also without, 10's not, I think, too onerous just for tonight's purposes. I think they were all related to one issue on the agenda. So for tonight's purposes and tonight's purposes only, for the public comments prior to the rest of the agenda, I'd move to suspend the rules to allow the individuals that are currently on the sheets written in, as well as any of the emailed ones that are that the Madam Clerk has to be able to be heard. The only thing I'd ask is if we're going to expand that, if we make sure that we do stick within the 3-minute time frame so that we do get everybody in and everybody heard in a expeditious manner. So that'd be my motion.
I would second the motion. I think it's important, if I can add a word, that from what I heard last week, A lot of individuals are here, could not speak, and I think, as you alluded to, Alderman McClanathan, that we need to have more, some more input from the populace tonight.
Motion by Alderman McClanahan, second by Alderman Burr, right?
It's okay.
Close enough?
Yeah, close enough.
Any comments? All in favor, say, motion aye?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay.
I have a letter from Tim Mahoney. I am writing this letter in support of zoning and code uniformity in the city of Freeport. As a city 2 years ago, we decided to go in a different direction. We changed our form of government and gave our new city manager and mayor a specific directive. Simplify the red tape at City Hall and make the city of Freeport competitive again. The new administration went straight to work and has taken many steps to move the city forward in 2 years. Various systems have been totally revamped. Houses and buildings that were eyesores or not savable have been dealt with. Organizations and relationships that have not been productive or no longer made sense have been deleted. Many tough decisions that have been kicked down the road for years and years have been made. I have had the pleasure of being a small part of this process as a member of the Liquor Commission, and in my opinion, things have improved in the city in many areas. This proposal is another example of something that should have been dealt with 30 years ago and now should be. The donut hole situation is yet another remnant of prior administrations who wanted to offend no one, so rather than making the tough choice, they chose to make no choice. We as a community have created a new city hall literally and figuratively that operates without bias and with total transparency. It has leveled the playing field for all. True leadership as an elected official is having the vision to see where your constituents should go and having the intestinal fortitude to take them there. It is not always about doing what is popular. Because of all these reasons, I am in support of annexing the donut holes. Leaving these properties out of the city at this stage simply makes no sense. The people who live in these areas are and have been receiving services for years that they don't pay for. City police and city fire, as well as city roads, have been theirs without taxation for longer than many who are employed at City Hall have been alive. We also have a situation for business where on one side of the street, one business has to follow many requirements that a similar business across the street does not. None of this is consistent with how far we have come and where we are heading as a city. I am mindful that for the people in these areas, this may seem unfair. The city should do all it can to make them whole for sure. If you have invested in animal enclosures, then the city should do what it can to allow you to continue. But in my opinion, that should not stop the city from doing what makes sense. Thank you for your time, Tim Mahoney.
Okay, that's the only letter we got, or text. Okay. Next up, for number one up will be Rich Hoffmaster.
Mayor, and all else that are gathered here tonight. 3 minutes is not enough time to even touch basis of the information I have here, but I will quickly try to cover what I can. Mayor, I've read your article Sunday, as I do all of your articles. It appears everything is going wonderful in the city, which is typical when someone gets elected. We want to brag up everything we're doing. Not a whole lot has changed, but I will tell you there are several things in here I'd like to talk to you about, but obviously couldn't do that tonight. There's no room for debate. A lot of these things I would question. Second of all, Mr. Mahoney talked about a city manager. I have received many emails and calls since last week. City manager, this is an example of why city manager doesn't work. He doesn't get elected. He comes in here, does what he wants to do, obviously, evidently, because he can, and he's researched the law, and we found out we can do it. I've asked all the council members, I give you my number, I ask you all to come out to my property. I would love to sit and talk to you why it's not going to work for me and why these benefits that I'm going to be paying for are not going to be allowed on my property. So my number is 815-275-7171. I will make arrangements, make myself available anytime you want to come out. I appreciate Tom come out the other day. Now, I've been a resident around here since 1968, as I mentioned. My grandfather was chief of police in the 50s. My uncle Earl Marsh was chief of police in the 60s. My cousin ran for mayor just recently, John Carlton Staben. I have spent my money in this town. The last 6 vehicles I bought in shops in this town. I buy my groceries, Cub Food and Aldi's. I frequent every restaurant in this town and on occasion watering holes. If I get forced into this town so I can pay more taxes and have less benefits, I will take my money elsewhere. What else I will do is I will spend every minute that I've got to get rid of city manager of this town, because I can tell you he's not being honest with you, he's not being honest with me. I talk to other people, I've talked to the businesses that are in relation to the gambling joints. No one that I can find is complaining. So if somebody is complaining across the street from Hyler's, give us their name. I'll give you the names of everybody I've talked to. I talked to 2 county board members this morning, my county board members, Mr. Steve Frick and Mr. Paul Foster. They found out about this annexation the same time you all did, a week ago Thursday, by a letter that was sent to them. Now, it says in the paper you talked to the coordinator. The county board members were not aware of it. I'm going to go to the county board member this Thursday. They weren't aware of it. Both of them are opposed to it. What they told me, they said I could share here tonight, but obviously I don't have time. I'm down to 9 seconds. I've got a bunch more things that I could tell you why this isn't going to work. But if this goes through, I'm going to spend my time getting rid of him, even if it means running for mayor. And I've already, right here, I'm probably.
Thank you,
at
Rich. Your time is
90%,
up.
90%, so I'm out of time.
Thank you.
Next is Brian Heller.
Thank you. My name's Brian Heiler. I am a resident of Freeport, also the owner of South Street Slots, which is one of the big things in question here. I can try and make this real simple and easy. I would just like to ask and see if you can give me an answer. If this annexation goes through, I'm in a dilemma because I can't produce 50% food compared to my gaming revenue that's coming in. I've been #1 for 3 months in a row. I produce a lot of revenue to the Stevenson County. If it's annexed, will I be grandfathered in along with the tenant that has already signed a lease and looking to move into my building? Can you answer that for me? You know, that's what I'm asking. If nobody can answer that question for me, then we have no business voting on this annexation. Evidently, the homework hasn't been done, or you're just not telling me that I am going to be closing down. One of the two. I need to know. I have 6 employees. I need to let them know. Should you go out and buy anything? Should you start saving all your pennies? You might be out of a job coming up real soon. I've got 6 worried employees. I built a great business. You talk about eyesores. City of Freeport tears them down. Now they've got a bunch of lots that they have to mow. If you looked at that property on what it looked like before I bought it, it could have been tore down. You would have had an empty lot sitting there. Instead, I put a tremendous amount of money into it. I beautified it. I beautified the corridor coming into Freeport. I didn't have to, I did. Now they're saying, and somebody around is lying, saying that I knew about this. I knew that I might get annexed in, but I went ahead and did it anyway because I didn't care. I'd like to know who that person is, because they're lying. I was told, as far as an annexation, it had to be mutual between the city and Freeport, that the city would come talk to me. And if it was, we would talk back and forth, and it would be a mutual agreement if there was any annexation going to happen. You know? And if you look on this site, it says definition of a city management form of government. What's supposed to happen is you're the council members are supposed to be making the decisions. You make the decision, and then you turn it over to our city manager to go ahead and put it into action. What happened? Our city manager sent out registered letters to everybody here, annexing their property. He already had it cut and dried. He spent money. So if you guys vote no, does that mean we just wasted all that money? He made the decision and said, okay, I've got it done already.
Thank you, Mr. Heiler. Your time is up. Thank you.
Ben?
Hello, my name is Ben Heiler. Lived in Freeport all my life. Grew up here. Went to Akron High School. Went to Highland Community College. 28 years old. Got a bachelor's degree. I'm here opening a business in Freeport. We started last December, me and my sister. We got the county liquor license, paid the money. We had a waiver we had to get. So we got the waiver. We got the county liquor license, paid the money. We got the state liquor license, paid the money. We have the county liquor license. We're ready to open. We have a gaming application in, ready to get approved. Now you guys are here. Just send out a letter to annex us in, and now we might not even be able to open. And if we can open through the end of the year, since we have a county liquor license, well, what happens next year? Do I have to get a city liquor license? Are you guys giving out city liquor license? Do I have to pay $10,000 instead of maybe $2,000? Those are good questions that I have as a business owner, and there's no clarity, no transparency. These are all unilateral decisions by the city manager, apparently. Does anyone know how much gaming revenue comes into the city? Just Freeport? 2017, $324,000. In 2018, $355,000. Where is this money going? Does anybody know? Are we putting it to good use? Or are we just going to tax people? We aren't going to allow these gaming establishments in? But between me and my dad already, Brian Heiler here, South Street Slots brought in last year $27,452 from August to December. We're talking between my business and South Street Slots, about $80,000 in revenue for the city. But if you guys aren't going to accommodate or at least come to us to say, well, what happens after the annexation? That's a lot of revenue. I feel like the citizens of Freeport would really like a say in that lost revenue. $80,000 a year. It's a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
My name is Linda Heiler. I'm here as a concerned citizen. I've been a lifelong resident of Freeport twice, because I consider my life one lifelong and my family a lifelong. My family wants to come back, part of them. They want to be part of Freeport, believe it or not. All the years I've lived here, I've gone through the mill race, whatever it was. I've gone through manager, mayor, that's the recent. What about all these taxes where it's like develop, bring them in, help. We need to, I don't think we're in any position to pick and choose what businesses come in, especially when I know that building was purchased 4 years ago, 1. 2, nobody even knew there was a building. 3, as far as I know, South Street was not a donut hole. It was a big, huge, flat tire that that Brian has fixed. It is fixed. Now everybody sees the blacktop. That costs a lot of money. Everybody sees the building. And it wasn't yesterday. If you knew what was going to happen here, if you had plans, if you already have 6 votes, how long were you going to wait? How long were you going to wait to say, sorry, quit? We decided to annex it, and we can do that. We can say, is this like, okay, is this back in the day of, hell no, we won't go? Or is this back in the day of, I'm mad as hell and ain't going to take it any longer? I'm here as a citizen. I am here because you guys have asked me to fund not his, but the fire department, the police department, fire that. I'm like, you know what? I just recently retired, and that wasn't yesterday. I've worked all my life to do what I want to do right now. Retire. Now, are you going to tell me, federal government tells me, if you're born after this, you're 72, tough. So now, I'm a citizen of Freeport, city of county. All my taxes go to everybody. How come these guys, who was not watching it? Okay, we haven't been watching for 30 years. You haven't known they need pensions? You don't know that the pipes under the city are going wrong? I'm just a housewife and now retired, and I've worked in a hospital. Yes, very stressful. Yes, I'm done. Now what? You guys can just say, well, sorry. On page 4 says for 100 years we could have done this, but right now, at this day, we really like your building. We really like that. You guys were all doing a great job. Have you had one complaint? One complaint. Look at your police records. Since that building is open, Now, I'll tell you what, in my neighborhood, there were many, many, many times, which even now, I could leave. I could afford it, but it's like, no, I'm gonna stay here because otherwise it would be a drug neighborhood. Ask the police how many times our neighborhood has been called up. When we thought many years ago that the gangs were over, Carroll was all fixed up, they moved. And we moved them out of our neighborhood. So they just moved. We stood up, we said, no, I care about Freeport. And now you're telling me all this money? I don't need money. I'm retired. I wouldn't have retired if I needed money.
Thank you,
But
Linda.
now
Your time
I'm
has
supposed
expired.
to pay more money?
Thank
For
you.
what? And you're gonna say, I don't need $300,000. And
Linda,
you know
we
what work
appreciate
have
you
to do?
speaking, but your time has
Nothing.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Troy Barr.
Mayor, City Manager, Alderman, thank you. So it's kind of awkward. I walked in, I saw Ben, and I coached Ben when he was a little kid. I am proud of him that he got up and spoke to him. Not many kids would do that, but I told him we're Bulldogs, but we're on opposite sides tonight, and I apologize. I'm here to voice my support for the annexation. And it's on a couple levels. First of all, I'm a business owner in the city of Freeport, or a partner, many partners in our business, in a local establishment that has gaming. And though not down the street from Southside Slots, we had to go by certain rules. We had to follow certain rules, and we all are following rules that require us to sell a certain amount of food and beverage, also in relation to our gaming. And, you know, gaming is a whole nother issue. I know there's a lot of people for it, a lot of people against it, and it's a very emotional thing. But the bottom line is we have it. And in my opinion, I feel like we should all be playing by the same rules. And the annexation, with it being so close to the city of Freeport, I have to trust my leaders that the law says that it's a doable thing. And if that is the case, then I believe it's the right thing for a business to do that and to play by the same rules. Although it's a change in the business model, I understand that. It's a difficult change and an emotional change. Again, in my opinion, I think it's the right thing to do, considering the rest of us have to play by a certain set of rules. Also, as a citizen, I just want to voice my opinion a little bit. As a concerned citizen, because I know about this much when it comes to home rule, but I know enough to probably be dangerous, as the old saying goes. And with the census coming up, I just saw an article today that the state of Illinois is risking, if they underreport, they're risking two seats in the Congressional Senate. And that's kind of scary as a state, and we all know the challenges that the state of Illinois is facing, and I think we're facing something similar here in the city of Freeport. And I think as a citizen, it's really important that we continue down the path of home rule, and if we don't do that, I think we're in jeopardy as a city at losing all the progress that we've made. So, again, I support it, and I'm sure you'll all make the right decision. So, thank you.
Thank you, Troy.
Dwayne McLinn.
This was short notice, but I would like to speak on behalf of Dwayne, best that I can. I've known him for maybe 3 short years. An incredible young man, just a little over 80, I believe, don't mind. He's been in Freeport since 1970. He has a residence in Freeport, and he has a business out on South Street that's in the county. He's been here since 1970. He's totally opposed to this, and like everyone else, wonders why he didn't get previous notice and an opportunity to discuss this. I know that we have Leadership Institute out at Highland. We promote that in the newspaper all the time. We promote it in meetings, we promote it, other people promote it. We send all of our young kids to Leadership Institute out at Highland. And I question the leadership that's being provided here in that we're gonna take this drastic measure and not notify the people that are involved in this. You've been talking about it for 18 months. We've known about it for the last 10 days. I have so much material that I'd like to cover here. 3 minutes doesn't cover it. But look at this man, his son there with a business. We've had 18 months you've discussed it. No one here has had an opportunity to raise these issues that now we're trying to raise. Once again, I ask you to come out, sit in my property, and we'll talk about it. But I'll tell you, over the last 40 years, I raised 3 kids. Being in the county, or being in the country, I have been president of the Big Brothers Big Sisters Association in town. I had little brothers for over 20 years. I had 3 of them. I was president of the board. I served on that for many, many, many years. I coached Little League Baseball in Freeport. I was president of the league. I was vice president of the league for many years, and I've been involved in many, many other community situations. I did it from the county. I didn't do it from the city. And it made no difference to me whether I was in a county or city. The county people contribute to the city, and the city contributes back and forth. And yes, there's some interaction. I can tell you some stories about how it worked well between fire, rural, and Freeport, and some not so well. But this situation has worked for the last how many years? There's going to be interaction between county and city. Just because you move the county line or the city line out a ways or fill in these holes, in my case, you're moving it out, because I live clearly out in the country. In 2 years, are you going to go farther? Are you going to go farther? But I will tell you my situation, Walnut Street, there is no curb, there is no sidewalk. I have more traffic, bicycle traffic, and walking traffic going to Menards and Walmart than the east side of Freeport. They have a curb, they have a sidewalk. I don't. You're going to have a very dangerous situation on that road. You're going to have to put in a sidewalk and the bridge there. It's not healthy. My 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you for watching that. I was not aware.
Barry McLean?
You get the first half. I'm going to designate the first half.
Okay, I'd just like to throw a few facts out there. Owning a gaming lounge, and I'll address this also to Troy. He says that I'm hurting his business. There are 2 types of businesses that are gonna have machines. They're gonna be in restaurants and bars, or you're gonna have a gaming lounge. My gaming lounge has no bar stools. People wanna walk in, they wanna play the machines, they don't wanna see a bunch of people drinking, they don't wanna walk through a restaurant to get to the machines. These are people that are playing them that are not gonna come play your machines. They're not gonna go to a restaurant, they're not gonna go into Semino's. All these people do is they want a nice, quiet place to be able to play, just like going to Dubuque. It gives them an opportunity not to have to drive an hour and a half, but still get a chance to play without going through restaurants and stuff. Now to say, okay, I'm hurting your business, you wanna know what is hurting your business? Freeport is hurting the business of the restaurants. Why? Okay, the number 1 in Freeport, 10 pennies, we all know that. The number 2, Dottie's. You want to know who number 3 is that's stealing all your revenue? Shell Gas Station is the number 3 revenue maker in Freeport. It's not a restaurant. And now they're putting it in grocery stores. So it's not my gaming lounge that's hurting Freeport.
I'm going to try one more thing here. That I'm not going to talk about what effect this is having on these people or Freeport. Quite frankly, I don't know how Freeport's going to benefit from this yet. I've heard a lot of people say Freeport won't benefit because the expense of providing these services in some of these places like mine is going to be, there's no way I can get city sewer out there. But anyway, I was president of the union out there, many know, Kelly Springfield for 8 years. I was active for 35 years out of my 42-year career. But one thing that made Kelly Springfield survive in a very tough market in Freeport, I would say, was the cooperation that the union and the company had. And when I was president for 8 years, I can tell you when issues come up in the plant, and there were some serious issues, we about lost 100 moles to Mexico because Goodyear said, we can't produce them in this plant by the end of the summer. And I told corporate, I said, we'll get them. If that's what you need to keep the moles in Freeport, we'll get them. And we created a 225 challenge. You needed 225,000 tires. We formulated committees, and we addressed every issue in the plant that could get us more tires. Didn't ruin situations for people. We cross-trained, we did this, we worked Sunday. And at the end of the summer, we ended up with 275,000 tires. So we met that goal. But unfortunately, 4 years later, because of many other reasons, we lost those moles and lost jobs. My point is this. There's a lot of issues out here that I think the first letter that was written and other things are planted there for the benefit of one side. This committee needs to do what's called problem solving. Get people involved all around to talk about both sides instead of pissing a bunch of people off. And I don't know if it's going to benefit Freeport. If this benefited Freeport, guess what? I'd probably be for it, even if it was against me. I see the time. This should have been talked about for the last 18 months. Thank you.
Dwayne Janicki?
Dwayne Janicki, South Walnut Road. When we started the meeting, we all stood up, we put our hands over our heart, and we said the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. The United States is not a democracy. The United States is a republic. Democracy is when 51% of the people can tell the other 49% of people what to do. A republic is a government that sets laws to keep its people free. That's what you're supposed to be doing, keeping the people free. And I know that some of you have served in the armed forces, and I thank you for your service. And you took a pledge to the Constitution, I believe, when you take the oath. And just because you're not still in the service doesn't mean that you shouldn't still be fighting to keep people free. The Declaration of Independence says we have inalienable rights like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what you're supposed to be fighting for, people's rights. The United States has laws against monopolies for companies. There's a reason for that, because if a company has too much power, they'll have a tendency to abuse it. We don't have the same laws for government, except the Constitution. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. When a city can tell that people have to live in their city, that's too much power, and that's an abuse of power. And I'm sure some of you have pets, dogs, cats, or another pet that you just love and you just think they're treating them like another kid. Well, there's a fellow on Factory Street that's had, for over 50 years, he said, he's had animals, larger animals. They're just as much his pets as your dog and cat. You know, if you come after my dog, you better bring the army with you, because I'm not giving up my dog. But you want that fella to give up his pets? That's not right. Rich, my neighbor, has 4 acres, and he would like to have some pets, some larger animals. And I understand when you buy a house in the city, you check out what the ordinances are, and you check out the rules, and if you don't agree with them, don't buy a house in the city. Well, I'm not having that choice. I bought a house in the country, and I like the rules that we have. When a business is having problems with sales, what do? They have a sale. They change the way they do business to bring people in. When the city has a problem, keeping citizens. We need to find out why people don't want to live in Freeport and fix it. Government doesn't seem to want to take responsibility. It wants to make it someone else's problem and make them pay for it. Just because something is legal doesn't make it right. Public opinion does matter, because
Thank you
it's
for your
their city.
time, Dwayne.
Patty Morton?
Patty Morton here, and I just want to know, am I being annexed? I never received a letter. 852 Fairgrounds Road? Is that part of the annexation? I'm hearing everybody talking about this letter, and we never received one. Not even 2. Can anybody answer that question?
They're looking right now, just wait.
Not part of it?
You're not being annexed.
Well, that's a godsend, because I'm already putting up with Walmart. I've got trash, and you guys, when Walmart went in, you were supposed to put the sewer system going down Fairgrounds Road. When they built Walmart, they put it down 26. So anybody trying to hook up into sewer, it's gonna cost you a shitload of money, believe me. So I am not being annexed in. Thank God. Thank God. Because, I mean, home rule is like raising your taxes. You know, every 2-3 years, it's just gonna go up and up and up, and home rule sucks, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
Well, I'm a citizen. You know, my next question is, you know, nobody wants to hurt any businesses. We want businesses to come. I want them to come so they can pay for some of this. I'm on a fixed income now. So when everything goes up, as in water and everything I need, I don't have a choice. It affects me major and a lot of other people. Okay, so there's 50-50 rule. So, okay, we annexed the the donut hole in. And now Brian has to sell as much liquor as he does food. Now, say he can do that. Because you know, for the first year, everybody is gonna go to the new place. So now how many businesses, how many eateries, how many dining places can you afford to have in Freeport? I know Wendy's won't care, Culver's won't care, McDonald's won't care. Now then, the private businesses that you wanna come in, that have come in, as in the ones downtown, that have been in, that have worked, that do their due diligence, 9 East. I mean, several of them, eateries, you know what I mean? I like them all. You better, because you live in Freeport, there's not that many. Now, we can afford another restaurant. Now, I bet you Seminos would complain a lot less if they realized we might just open that. And you know what? I know a lot of gamblers, well, if they have to, they'll order a hamburger. But they will gamble. Just like drinkers, they'll drink. If you like clothes, you'll buy clothes. We're human, we're Americans. Only in America. That's what we want to do, only in America, not only in America. You can say it 2 ways. Think about it 2 ways. I'll give that to anybody.
Thank you.
Last one on the list, Roger Julius.
I'm Roger Julius. I'd like to approach this from a little different angle. I have been in the city of Freeport for 12 years. This annexation basically does not affect me because of where I live. Where it might affect me is I have 3 farms in Silver Creek Township. Now, as I understand it, these places that you're annexing, their taxes are going to go to Freeport. I think I heard this last week. Did I not? Can anybody answer me?
The townships keep their taxation.
The township keeps their taxes. And the city's not going to gain anything from it? I believe if you live in the city, you have a tax on your electricity, you have a tax on your gas, you have a tax on your telephone. That's not going to go to the township, is it? It's going to go to the city. Is that correct? Is that correct, gentlemen?
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
It's our rules that we can't interact with members back and forth during public comments. However, we can address issues that are raised when we have our substantive discussion. Is that a correct interpretation of the rules?
Okay, thank you.
And what did you just tell me?
Can't be
What that meant,
You
sir.
took part of my 3 minutes.
Well, Mr. Julius, that
another
meant that
30
we don't
seconds, and that's what it
interact,
took.
but I'm sure many council members have been taking notes, and in their discussion, they will do their best to talk about these things that might answer your questions.
Okay. So if the taxes are still going to go to the township, then why did you in your letter say that Freeport Rural Fire will be removed so the taxes won't be as high because you won't be paying those taxes anymore? Is that correct? You wrote the article.
We'll talk about it in our discussion.
I want you to talk about it in front of these people.
Well, interaction during public comments is not what our ordinance allows.
Okay, I'll move on. I understand the guy on Factory Street who has the sheep, the goats, the chickens, and even a donkey. He was told that he was going to be able to keep those. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
Okay, really can't do that.
Okay, well, we'll just assume that he can. Dr. Morton was here last week, and I'm very familiar with this place because at one time I lived on the W.T. Raleigh farm, and the guy that owned it before Dr. Morton was a guy by the name of Joyce. He built a horse barn on that property. I don't know if Dr. Morton has horses or not, but if he does, will he be able to keep them like the guy on Factory Street, or will he be told, no, you can't have horses?
Thank you, Mr. Julius. Your time is
My time
expired.
up?
Yeah.
I think he took
Thank you.
30 seconds of it, but that's...
You can have 20 seconds for my point of order. I don't.
What you're doing is not right. You didn't notify the people in time for it. It's probably
Okay, that's the end of public comments. Now we have a short presentation by SBA.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Honorable Elders persons. I am Tamim Chaudhary from the U.S. Small Business Administration, and as some of you may know, we're here because of the severe storms and flooding that took place in March. For those of you who are not familiar with our services, SBA offers federal assistance with low-interest, long-term loans for homeowners, renters, businesses, and nonprofits affected by disasters, such as the one that you experienced. Homeowners may receive up to $200,000 with an interest rate just above 2%. Homeowners and renters may both receive up to $40,000 for personal property damages, and by that I mean any vehicles that have been flooded, furniture, washer, dryer, things like that. Moving on to any businesses that may have been affected in this area, they may receive up to $2 million for physical damages. This includes real estate, inventory, equipment, and interest rate may be as low as 4%. For nonprofits, the interest rate is as low as 2.75% with the same terms. They also may receive up to $2 million. If any business or nonprofit that you know of here has economic injuries, like sales are down because of the flooding, they may also receive loans with the same terms as mentioned earlier. We started our operations last Friday. We are going on this whole week. Daily, our operations are 9 a.m. through 6 p.m. And on Thursday, we close operations. We are at the Highland Community College. This is basically live assistance we're offering right now. If, say, a lot of us are not very computer literate, if anybody needs the assistance to fill in the loan online, we can help you do that. Any questions and stuff like that, we can help you right then and there. But even after we're gone, the loan process still continues. Residents here have until July 8th to apply. That's the physical disaster deadline. That's for like physical damages. If anyone has economic injuries, it's February 7th. I ask anyone you know to please just consider it. Please pass on the word. That's my job here as public affairs. I'm trying to get the word out, not only in this county, but surrounding counties as well, because disasters see no borders, and we're doing the surrounding counties as well. These loans don't have any application fees nor any closing costs, so we ask you to just consider it. If you're a homeowner or renter, maybe half an hour of your time will be taken up just to talk to us, have the loan application filled in. If you're a business owner, maybe up to 4 hours max. You're not really spending anything but your time, so consider this as an option because it's the primary form of assistance from the federal government. I will stay around here because if anybody wants to talk to me privately afterwards, I believe that's my message. We are, in case anybody doesn't know, Highland Community College. We're on the Student Conference Center, the second floor. I do thank all of you for your time, and if it permits, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for him?
Chair,
Yes.
can you repeat your name? You
Ma'am.
talked very quickly.
Of
and I
course,
didn't
of
catch
course.
your
And
name.
ma'am, I'll give you one of my cards if you'd like.
That would be wonderful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you for your time.
And then, Madam Clerk, could you let the record reflect that Alderman Busker came in during public comment?
Thank you very much.
Excuse me.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Went on to number 7, discussion of ordinance 2019-29. Next, the ordinance 2019-29 regarding annexation territory surrounded by the city, in the city of Freeport. Manager Crowe?
Thank you. Chairman. Just a couple things here. Well, I have a lot of things as we go forward here. And a couple of them have been questions that I've received from aldermen, so a couple of the discussions here. This is the annexation discussion, dealing with the annexation as we had with the first reading last week. And this is to move on to, and it's been moved to the next meeting as well. So just this is the annexation of the donut holes. These are donut holes are areas which are surrounded by the city and are less than 60 acres. As state requires, we have to give notification to those people that live within those areas that we're going to be doing a forced annexation. 15 days prior, we have to notify the county, the townships, the rural, Freeport rural, within 10 days, and then 30 days afterwards of the passing of the ordinance, we have to notify the county again that these properties are going to be annexed in. They will be the same zoning that they are currently zoned at. They will remain zoned as we annex them in. If there are any that want to change their zoning, we will have a meeting with the ZBA and go in front of the Planning Commission to change their zoning as we move them into the city. Freeport Rural, we're required to pay them over the next 5 years. They have $8,500, excuse me, that they are gaining from these properties. The first year we give them 100% of that. Next year after that, 80%, 60%, 40%, then down to 20%. The townships in which those properties will remain within those properties will remain within those townships. Townships will still collect the taxes for both them and as collected from the township, as well as their road assessments as we are going forward. Dealing with the liquor commission, grandfathering for the gaming parlors, they would come in front of the liquor commission and then come in, make a proposal, and then go in front of the city council if we want to grandfather those properties in. That is a recommendation from the liquor commission as we go forward. The other thing that we wanted to point out is doing a review of these properties. We currently have 9 properties that are receiving water and sewer, or water or just sewer. For those that are receiving water and sewer, as well as water as singly and sewer singly, their bills will actually decrease. They are currently paying a premium for being in the county. They are currently still already paying, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, they are already paying the capital fee, and they will continue to pay that capital fee. We are offering, we are going to look at, for health and safety, we've already looked at a couple of the properties where we need to place fire hydrants as we go down. We're looking at the cost as we go forward, and we're going to add that into our capital plan moving forward. These areas will be covered by our fire and police. That's why Freeport Rural, we will be taking over that immediately. That will actually lower the property's insurance rates because the ISO will lower during this once they're annexed into the city. Currently, we did a study over the last 5 years. We've had 24 calls by the police that have responded in this, and since 2009, we've had 16 fire calls that our fire and police have had to go forward. We will offer, for those that have leafs, we will offer leaf pickup throughout this area. As part of this, we already are plowing and maintaining the streets in this area as we go forward. They will be in, there are currently 47 properties. The total amount of increase in taxes to the city will be a little less than $15,000. Standing by for any questions.
Any discussion or questions?
Discussions.
Chair? Before we get too deep into the substantive discussion, there is one thing that I do want to note. Some comments have been made. I've seen them, both online and then also, in person in regards to it, pointing the finger at the city manager in regards to that. And I think there's a misconception in regards to how that this operates. The decisions in regards to this are the council. This wasn't something that was just thought up of by the city manager. This wasn't something that he just said, I'm going to go ahead and put this through, and you guys go along with it. This was something that, when we were doing our comprehensive planning in regards to it, that the issue was first raised. Now, we can talk about timing a little bit in regards to that, and I said I didn't want to get too substantively into it. I do have some comments and some thoughts and some questions that I want to ask, but I don't believe it's fair for us as a council to sit here and allow that misconception to continue. It is a council decision. We are the ones who are going to have to live with it in regards to it. And we instruct the city manager they're the administration portion. They need to follow through with the administrative. So we don't send out the notice. That's correct. That's why you get the correspondence from the city manager and the administration on it. But to lay the blame at the feet of the city manager in regards to any portion of it isn't really fair to him. Now, with that said, I look forward to having a substantive discussion in regards to the issues on it, but I felt that needed to be cleared up because ultimately, at the end of the day, it is a council decision, and he was getting direction from prior direction from the council moving forward on that.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keister?
Yes, Manager Crow, one thing I'm kind of unclear on here is with the taxes. You said the township is going to be getting the money. Are they going to be paying taxes for them as well as Freeport at the same time, or is there a division there? How's that work?
So every property owner within the city of Freeport pays taxes to a township. You pay taxes to, if you're living within Freeport, you're paying to one of the 5 townships. So whether it's Freeport Township, Silver Creek, Harlem, Florence, you are paying tax money to those. The difference is Freeport Township does not collect road tax. They have enrolled that into it's a single tax, so the other townships also have a road tax on top of that. But we have an agreement with Silver Creek and Harlem that we maintain their roads, and Florence, we maintain their roads in those areas that are donut holes. We do not receive any money from them going forward, and that we plow those roads. So there are areas which we are not receiving money for, but it's part of the properties within the city, part of it's within the township, and we are the ones. That was a previous agreement that made by previous administrations between the township and us.
Okay, thank you. Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So if I understand this correctly, they're paying the township tax now, and on top of that, if this is annexed in, they're going to start paying the city tax as well.
That's correct.
Okay, so there will
Just
be
like those of us that are in Freeport Township, and there are properties out that are in Silver Creek, that are in Harlem, that are in Florence, that are paying the township tax as well as the city tax.
Okay, so there will be a fairly substantial increase at that point.
The difference is they will not be paying Freeport rural tax, so as they go forward. So that's going to drop as soon as we annex them in. Freeport rural fire department tax drops off.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? If not, I have a couple I want to ask, just to clarify here. One is, you said the zoning stays the same, so if it's already zoned ag, it will remain ag?
That's correct.
And they can continue to have their animals that they have?
That's correct. In fact, the person on Factory, he's actually talked to me because he has 3 times tried to get the county to rezone his property and bring them together, and he hasn't been successful in that.
Okay, second thing is, when you said the gaming businesses on South Street, it's gonna go in front of the Liquor Commission to maybe grandfather them in. They're not going to be closed down immediately until that goes through, correct?
That's correct. Their liquor license that they have with the county maintains through the end of the county liquor
This year, okay.
at the end of the year.
That's what I assumed, but I wanted to clarify.
Chair.
Yes.
Going back to Alderman Keister's township issue, I do want to clarify, I'm looking at my tax bill right now, I pay a township, and we all pay a township, it's just there's 4 townships that we pay on it, so there's no change in regards to the township, and it's not converting, if somebody's in Silver Creek, someone's in Harlem, someone's in Florence, this annexation is not going to suddenly change into the city of Freeport, or to Freeport Township, I should say. Everybody already pays the township tax, and that township tax will remain.
Yeah, that's correct. The other thing is, the Park District, 30% of the properties already pay Park District tax. Park District actually has to go through they cannot annex any properties in, so they have to go through the same vote. They have to annex the properties into the Park District. They can only do that once the city has annexed them in.
Mr. Chair, if I may clarify.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Alderman Keister.
And I appreciate your explanation. The point I was trying to make is they're already paying the county tax and the township tax. They won't be paying, or on top of that, if they annex them in, then the city tax is gonna kick in on top of that, as addition to what they're already paying. That is correct?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, you'd have the city corporate, not the Freeport rural, on the fire, but again, current residents who are receiving those same services are in that exact same situation right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Is there a
Mr. Chair.
motion to-
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, Mr.
Just a
Chair.
couple
We
more
have more people that want to
clarifications,
talk.
just so, kind of like everybody's on the same page here, I think. One of the things that one of the people that spoke talk about was, first of all, would the corporate rate that they'd pay for us, would it be our 10.08%?
That's correct.
And their actual source at that period of time for evaluating their property would be Freeport Township?
No, so those that are in the other townships, it's the county who does it, because Freeport Township's the only one that has the assessor. The county does the Florence, Harlem, and Silver Creek.
So in other words, the city of Freeport, as I mentioned to somebody earlier, we have absolutely nothing to do with the appraisals of property. You know, that's done by townships, it's done by county, it's done by others. It's not done by us. So as we look at this, the magic thing, what should happen is that if they move in, if they're annexed into the city of Freeport, their taxes should go up, and this is nothing to hold approximately 10%?
It's a little because it's a little bit more than that, because they'll also get the library tax on top of that.
Okay. And what the one person, can I continue? Okay. What the one person brought up was the fact that the utility taxes that we have established and raised, will they pay those?
They will.
Okay. Just, you know, I just want everything on the table here, so there's kind of no surprises. And one of the other figures is, as we talk about city and county, please remember that the city is 54% of the county. So when we talk about numbers and we talk about all that stuff, the city is really the larger percent, but the taxes that you're talking about that you think will be more, we're already paying to the county. So, hope that
Mr.
answers
Chair.
the question or something.
Alderman Busker, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a few questions, I guess. Just kind of laying out when we do this, what the timeline would look like to get fire hydrants to those areas that don't have them. And also somewhere I read that if the person has a well and septic, they can be on that until such time as that fails. And then they have to come and get special permission to either dig a new well, or they have to buy it in there.
So they can stay on well and septic, and they will not receive any charges for water and sewer as long as they stay on it. The city ordinance says that once your well and septic fail, then you are required to hook on to our water and sewer.
And follow up, do we have current water and sewer to all of these areas that would be annexed in?
We looked at them, there are ways we can get water to all of them. Sewer's another issue as we go forward. And I'll,
Yes, and, right, water really isn't much of a problem. Sewer, that's going to be a little more involved discussion, but, you know, it is on the radar to do a deep dive on it.
one of the issues that we're having with sewer, because of their locations, is the putting in of lift stations in various locations.
Chair,
Yes.
don't we already have some areas, I'm thinking like down at the end of Demeter and things of that nature that are already in a similar situation? Their sewer is different?
Yes, correct. There's a number of properties that receive just water from us. Which are in the majority. There are a lesser number that have just sewer service from us. So we have encountered the situations going on currently.
Alderperson Brashaw.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I was waiting to be called on. For the listening audience, for some time we have talked about this in our comprehensive plan as far as moving Freeport forward. This was something that we had on our radar, was not counted on moving it forward until we felt a little bit of crunch for the census. The census is coming up in 2020, and that's why it was addressed sooner than later. I have been for annexation, and I can tell you why. My opinion for annexation is it is for the betterment of Freeport. I was elected by my people in my ward to move Freeport forward. I try never to vote for tax increases, though I've had to do that a little bit with the water sewer. Our water sewer infrastructure needed betterment, so I did vote for an increase in that, and we have recently voted for an increase in utility taxes. We have not pushed forward for a property tax increase in many years, and not in my time on the council. I do feel for each and every one of you with your specific circumstances. You all have unique circumstances, and in my ward specifically, I have donut holes as well. Mine are mostly zoned agricultural, and my specific constituents were worried about them being annexed and taxes, and whether they'd have to be rezoned into something that wasn't of like-kind use. The letter I wrote to that person was basically my opinion of the annexation that it is for the betterment of Freeport, mainly because of two reasons in my viewpoint. Some of the properties that will be annexed will add to our census numbers for the city, and that will also help with our comprehensive plan. The other reason is that the county has sometimes failed to enforce city ordinances as required in these donut holes. It is difficult to be proactive as a legislator in this community if we cannot enforce what the county officials have sometimes turned a blind eye to. Also, as the city is revising its comprehensive plan, the desire is to address the multiple donut hole areas within the city boundaries to assure similar zoning and code enforcement regulations across all areas of the city. Additionally, there is a desire by city leaders to include these properties in the 2020 census. In order to ensure that those properties are registered with the Census Bureau to count towards the 2020 census, the ordinance to annex these properties has to be completed prior to May 31st. That's why it came through all of a sudden. It wasn't like we were trying to jam it down anyone's throat. We didn't know about each and every specific circumstance, and I have urged Manager Crow to look at each and every individual case if possible. He has a specific phone number. You can call him and ask those questions, those of you that were trying to question us individually, 235-8206. And if you have very specific information about your taxation or how it affects you personally, he is the one that would be able to look that up a lot easier than we could individually. With that said, I'm sorry I kind of went off on a tangent. I would like to ask Manager Crow to refresh my memory on the fire charges and how that is specifically going to Freeport Rural Fire at 100% the first year if this goes through, and what are the graduated changes?
So it's they're getting a little over I keep wanting to say that, $8,500 from those taxes. So the first year we have to pay out of our taxes that we receive for the additional taxation, we have to give 100% of that $8,500 to Freeport Rural. The next year it's 80%, the next year it's 60%, next year is 40%, the next year is 20%. And that ensures they're covered for that time frame.
And, follow-up, is that a regulation that we follow? Is that something?
That's the state law.
And one more follow-up. And you, sir, are you willing to look at some of these situations, that everybody has unique situations?
So most of these will have to go, the unique situations will have to go in front of other boards and commissions that are appointed and approved by the council. And I can make recommendations with them, but it's really those, the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Liquor Commission. I'm not involved with the Liquor Commission. The mayor is the Liquor Commissioner, and but with the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission, and we'll look at each individual case as we go forward. We have to review those anyway with the annexations, the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Planning Commission have to review all of those anyway and make sure that because to give you an example, the county has 2 different ag zoning. We only have 1. So we want to make sure that that fits. County has 14 different residential ratings. We only have 7. So they have to make as close as it can match the ratings as we go, the zoning, as we go forward.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
You done, Alderman Bashaw?
I am, thank you.
Alderman Keister?
Okay, thank you. Manager Crow, in regards to the fire hydrants and stuff, in my knowledge and my experience, we've always had a very strong mutual agreement with Freeport Rural. So I would like to recommend that the fire department be directed, if this annexation goes through, that they identify the areas where the hydrants are missing, and then have an automatic response with Freeport Rural so they can bring their tenders in, so you have the water supply to do the job you need to do.
I'll relate to the Deputy Chief Incentive on that, because I'm not a professional firefighter, and how we go forward on this.
I don't think things would change. We currently work very closely with Freeport Rural. If we need them, we call them.
If I may follow up. And I understand that. I've experienced it myself. I guess my only thought or recommendation would be that we know that there's going to be areas now that you're going to have to respond to for a while where there's not going to be hydrants and you're going to need the tenders. Maybe they should be identified in your responses so that when you leave the station, you can call for those tankers because you know you're going to need them. That's my only recommendation.
That's correct. We try to pre-plan, everything, often, so
Okay.
we'll take care of that.
Thank you, Blair.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Busker?
with that, I'm just kind of questioning, is that kind of the rationale behind the stepping down of taxation so that we can implement those kind of changes to the fire hydrants over that time?
The state regulations realize that the impact on a rural fire department is such when a forced annexation takes place. They don't want to leave the rural fire department without that funding immediately. So that's the guidelines under which to follow, so they can plan over the long term that loss of funding.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Clem?
Just a couple follow-ups if I could. One of the things that did come up on discussion over the past week as we looked into different areas, I believe it was brought up by the interim chief right off the bat that burning is not allowed any place in the state of Illinois. Is that correct? Or burning of leaves?
So burning of leaves, that's a county ordinance. The burning of rubbish is not allowed anyplace else. Attorney Zito corrected me that it's not a statewide ordinance, but the county regulates when they can and cannot burn for leaves. That's a correction I said from the last committee.
Okay, so there is a gray area, but
that's correct.
Like you said, we've offered that. And I guess the other thing, the only thing I wanted to reaffirm, because we've gone back and forth, but for basically for the 3 people that are really have a concern on this, on the agriculture thing, that that will be opened and will be discussed, and people will be allowed to have animals, et cetera. So that isn't just, if it's annexed in, that isn't gonna go away.
If it is ag, if it's ag, zoned as ag property, they're allowed to have animals on the ag property.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask Attorney Zito's information on the burning code. Can you tell me what that is countywide?
Well, and Manager Crow did accurately relay that with regards to burning. The only statewide regulation is the fact that you can't burn rubbish. Okay, so that's prohibited, I believe.
Rubbish
from
is garbage?
garbage,
Okay,
exactly.
thank you.
There, but then with regards to leaves, they leave it to the local jurisdiction to decide whether or not burning is allowed or not allowed by ordinance. So the county has a rule of its own that allows or doesn't allow, then the city has a rule of its own, and then so on and so forth for every local jurisdiction.
Thank you for that information. Sorry.
Any,
Chair.
Alderman McClanahan?
Thank you. And Alderman Crow, just to get back to the agriculture.
Manager Crow.
I say Alderman, yeah, Manager Crow.
I don't vote.
Not with, yeah, okay. When we get back to the agricultural issue in regards to this, just to confirm, we already have in the city, there are still a few parcels that are zoned agriculture, correct?
That's correct.
And those ones are allowed, chickens, things of that nature.
That's correct.
So somebody coming in on that will not see a change as long as it fits under the agricultural zoning still.
That's correct.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, if I could follow up, Chair. Okay, I wanted to ask you a little bit. Some of the comments that I heard in regards to saying, well, what am I going to pay this year? Am I going to pay $2,000 versus $10,000 and things of that nature? I think it really highlights the need for uniformity throughout this system. Manager Crow, you've said it before, but I want to reiterate it. Each one of these parcels, the only parcels that are being considered are ones that are actually already inside the city and surrounded by the city of Freeport city limits. Is that correct?
Right, and that are under 60 acres.
And are under 60 acres. So we're not expanding outward into county land. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. When we're talking about zoning, and I want to focus on the liquor here briefly, what over the last year or year and a half, what discussions did the administration, including legal counsel, have with the county regarding enforcement of our ordinances in these donut holes, and particularly the liquor license?
So we've had discussions, I've had discussions with the county administrator about this. I was informed by Attorney Cox that he had discussions with Chairman Hadley as it relates to this. We've had, and I had it with two separate, we had a specific issue where Attorney Cox and I went to the Zoning Board of Appeals and then to over at the county talking about, it wasn't about liquor, but it was about another piece of property dealing with solar, that they were not following the city guidelines in this. And we raised that both in the Zoning Board of Appeals as well as to the commissioner, the land use commissioner, and the county administrator, that they needed to, we requested and they needed to enforce our codes, because in this particular case, it would be our fire department that would be responding to that. When that was we required fire lanes and a fire plan for this particular, and then for both the previous interim administrator and this current administrator, and I know Director Bucas was present for one of those conversations. We had conversations about that if they can, the conversation went, if they continue to issue licenses that were primarily for gaming parlors, that would cause an issue where the city council would speed up the time frame for which we were going to annex these properties.
Who is the land use commissioner?
At that time, it was Steve Frick.
So at least 3 members of the city administration have spoken with numerous officials over at the county over in excess of a year about enforcing the city zoning in these areas that should be under city zoning because they're in the donut holes.
Yes, and so to clarify for the audience, the board did not, we had these discussions. What we did not say was specifically when we were going to move forward with the annexation.
Okay.
What we were talking about, that this was, we were looking at annexation, we were moving forward and expressing our concerns both with the gaming parlors as well as not the other codes issues that we were having.
Chair,
Yes.
did we ever get any response as to why the county wasn't moving forward or uniformly enforcing these?
No, other than that, I know some of the business owners that at the ZBA that we were present at stressed that they did not want to follow the city codes. They felt that that was imposing on them a restriction that they did not want to follow.
Alderman Clem, did you have a comment before I said anything further?
No.
Alderman Parker? It looked like you were.
Thinking about older gaming things.
Alderman Brewery.
Thank you. Manager Crow, in recent history, has there been any quote, voting approval of grandfathering processes for any businesses in the community?
So the 2 current gaming facilities were grandfathered in by the Liquor Commission.
The 2, Mr. Heiler?
No, the 10 pennies and,
Okay.
and it was done through the Liquor Commissioner up to the City Council.
Is that process initiated by the business owner, or does the city say, well, grandfather, how's the process work, or is it documented someplace?
I would
imagine that it would start with an application, because ultimately any establishment that wants a city liquor license would need to apply for, and then typically those applications go before the Liquor Commission there. So I presume that would be the same process.
In those couple of instances, do we have any time period by which the business has to apply for or petition for a waiver to be grandfathered in?
No, those were specifically grandfathered in under the rewrite of the liquor ordinances.
Alderman Burberry, when that liquor code was being rewritten, it was because there was we had a cap on how many gaming licenses we were giving. And we had several businesses that wanted to have that gaming opportunity. And so the commissioners decided that they did not want Freeport to become a community of parlor after parlor after parlor. So they decided that they wanted to put in something that would cause them to have to bring other income in. So whether it be, restaurant, bar type situation, or even selling gas, they had to have more income coming in that particular way versus their the gaming part of it. So that way it allows the city of Freeport to not have a cap on how many parlors or how many gaming licenses they give. But because there was 2 parlors prior to that code, they had to grandfather them in because it was established businesses beforehand. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other?
Sure.
Alderman Clem?
Maybe I'm going to speak on something I probably shouldn't speak on, but let me give you a little history on gaming in the city of Freeport since I've been here a couple days. The first 2 licenses that came before the city of Freeport, none of us even knew what it what was going in there. We assumed what was going in there, but had absolutely no idea what was going in there. And that was currently when we had our own city attorney, and we couldn't do this, and we couldn't do that. So after we've got 2 of these in, needless to say, there were other establishments that applied for liquor licenses and things moved forward. I was watching the news one night in Rockford, and they had a piece on the news about how many gaming parlors there were between how many people in the city of Rockford, and it amounted that there was one for every couple hundred people or something, and I said, you know, that's stupidity at its finest. There's only so much money that can be put into gambling. End of conversation. I don't care who you are, you got so much money to stretch around. The minute you start getting more than that, you're gonna start having trouble between all the people. So we put a cap on the licenses, okay? Then we ended up with the predicament that somebody wanted to come to town that was a legitimate operation that would like to have a liquor license. So that's about the time administration changed and things were done differently, okay? And it was a good thing. It meant that if somebody was coming forward with a gaming license, it was a legitimate business that was gonna have everything else. Keep in mind one thing, one of the reasons that they did gaming in the state of Illinois was not only to create gaming revenue, but was also to create sales tax. Two of the parlors here in town, or one of the parlors has a limit of selling 4 beers and hardly sells any food anymore. Their game is not about selling anything. Their game is tavern owners came forward to us and said, look, all these guys are doing nothing but taking every gaming nickel and taking it out of town. So that's why this administration has taken a different look on the way that gaming should be done. So, thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Chair? Okay, thank you. We've talked about and addressed that if it's an agricultural zoning, and I get that concern, and people have had questions. I know they've been calling into the administration and asking in regards to it. But at the end of the day, if you're an agricultural zone, you're going to be an agricultural zone. If you're going to be a residential zone, you're going to be a residential zone. So there's not going to be an impact on that. And we're looking, but when I look at this issue, if we were looking at expanding outside of the county and trying to bring in, or outside into the county, trying to bring in new properties into that, that's a totally different process. It's not a forced annexation process. It's a different process. But when we have these parcels, and by the way, you know, I know we have 47 different parcels in regards to it, and so you get 47 at least different issues. Sometimes maybe some have 3 or 4 different issues in regards to it. It becomes a difficult thing that you either have to do all the parcels or you do none of the parcels, because if we start breaking off this parcel here and saying, well, we're going to exclude you for this reason, or we're going to exclude you for that reason, the process breaks down. And frankly, I know there are certain individuals and entities on here that you know, that didn't want or don't want to be included in regards to it. But again, if we start breaking them out in regards to it, it's really becomes an all or nothing. So I look at this from the city as a whole. And so each one of us on this council were voted in by certain constituents, except for Alderman Berberet, who got the whole city, Alderman at large there. And each one of us were put in by X amount of residents in regards to us, those who are already in the city of Freeport. When I talk to constituents in regards to this issue, and I say, okay, you pay for these services, and we're surrounded, and meanwhile, there's these pockets of other areas inside the city limits. Fire and police respond to them. If you're going to plow the streets, you know, that we don't pull up the plow when we're going by a parcel and then lower it again when we come by the parcel. Leaf pickup doesn't differentiate in regards to it. When we're going ahead and you're repaving roads or doing repairs to the roads, the street department doesn't say, well, we got to this parcel, we got to go, you know, take the asphalt and the machines, whatever it is. That's your field, not mine. But they don't lift it up and go over to that parcel. No, it all gets taken care of. And who's paying for it? Those citizens that elected us and are sitting in our seats. And when I look at them and say that we still have these parcels out there that don't pay the city of Freeport tax but receive these services, they look at me like I got 3 heads and they say, what's the issue? Why are you having 3 public meetings in regards to this issue? Mm-hmm. Why are you giving more notice than is required by statute? This is a no-brainer. And while I don't want to say that as harshly as that sounds, but that's basically, you know, the words that I've heard from some individuals in regards to it. The reality is, for us making this decision, we need to listen as to what the individual concerns are. We need to address it where we can. We need to say, okay, when we can't address it, this is what it's going to look like differently. But at the end of the day, We need that uniformity of services. We need that uniformity of code. We need that uniformity of zoning. And it's only fair to the rest of the citizens, the 24, 25, 24,500, whatever the number is right now, 23,000. It's only fair to those rest of the citizens that we have that uniformity. So while I appreciate every concern that's been raised, and frankly, a lot of the concerns that have been raised led to phone calls and asking the administration, what is the response to this? At the end of the day, I'd be doing a disservice to the rest of my constituents if I voted against the annexation.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Keister.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. One of my major concerns of this when it came up last week was the fact that there hadn't been this discussion and dialogue on it. And there was a large amount of questions and concerns. I am very happy to see that we've spent as much time on this as we did tonight, because I think we have hopefully answered a few questions, some, not all of them at this time. I'm still, myself, not decided whether I'm going to vote for it next week or not, because I don't know if we've answered enough of the questions. I still have to struggle with that one. But I want to thank the rest of the council for entering into this kind of dialogue and discussing this and actually trying to address the concerns of the citizens and stuff that, let's face it, some of them are going to be your constituents here pretty soon if this passes. So thank you for considering this as well as you did.
Any other comments? Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Brashaw.
Thank you. I look out over the audience and I wonder which one of you is going to be the next alderperson to run in Freeport. I'm not allowed to answer questions, but I'm going to give you a little story. When I grew up in a small town, my folks got their property annexed to the city because Camp Road in the little town I lived in was flourishing, and they wanted the homes and the properties there. So unfortunately, my folks were faced too with a letter of annexation, and their property was annexed to the city, and they had to pay for water and sewer, which they were upset because they had to dig up the whole front yard and put it in at the time. But what they were more upset about was they raised chickens. So I've heard this chicken story back in my own childhood, and they fought to keep their chicken barns, and they won. And my mother was so upset with the whole thing, she ran for city council. And when she did, she won. And she served with people. She learned that they had to make some very, very tough decisions, often unpopular decisions, sometimes where they lost friendships. But in the long run, she made me make the same promise I made to the city of Freeport when I was sworn in, is I have to do what the people want me to do, and I have to do and what my constituents want me to do, and I also have to do what I pledged I would do, is do the best thing for Freeport. So whether people agree with me or not, I still think annexation is a good idea. Thank you.
Any further comments? We have a motion.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I'd just like to say one thing about the comment's been made a couple of times about people not wanting to live here and moving out. Actually, it's quite to the contrary. If you look at our real estate statistics, homes are on the market less and less all the time. The sales are happening so quickly that we actually don't have enough homes on the market for people that are looking for specific things. So the good thing is people are wanting to move in.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to move this to the next council meeting.
We don't need that, actually. It's already on. Thanks. Yeah, it's on.
Okay, there's no further discussion on this one. We'll move to number 8, discussion of approval of a bid for gills and mooring trash recycling, landscape waste collection, and disposable contract. Alderman, Manager Crowe, not Alderman.
So before I presented a bid for you, we've been in negotiation for quite a while with Gills and Mooring, and they are in a consolidated LLC together to provide services to Freeport. As we have mentioned to you before, it's also tied to the transfer station as we go forward. The transfer station contract is for 3 more additional years to go here. So we've put on a 10-year, proposing a 10-year contract to go forward two options in front of you here that we've negotiated. The other thing we have found is that the city of Freeport was not raising the rates in accordance with the CPIs, and because of that, we actually have, in a survey by myself and the clerk, we have, for our size of community, the lowest rates in the state. So, and I think Gills and Mooring, the representatives, will concur with that. So what we've negotiated is a rate going forward. Your top one is for the toters, which are sitting back there. This is the 95 gallon toters for trash and 95 gallon toter for recycling. Recycling will be picked up every other week within an area, and we'll have an AB week within the trash pickup week. The other bid is for keeping the type of service we had, which is just putting it curbside. The one thing that's not included, we also have a $1 fee on this cost, which starts at $60 for the first year and it builds up to cover our overhead dealing with this and for the properties that we're not collecting from. Right now, on average basis, on a monthly basis, we're collecting from about 9,300 properties, but there are 9,750 properties within the city that we're providing service for. Additionally, we get 400,000 right around that from the transfer station. It's a little bit less than that, and that's built into this. Some of the maintaining and working with that, along with the taking of street waste from the sweeper into dumping it off at the transfer station is built into this cost. And the decision I need tonight going forward is which, if you want to go with the toters or remain the way we are. That being said, discussions not only here but we're talking to other haulers. The toters is where the industry's going, and so we may be forced and Josh and Denny are both in here. We may be forced to go to the toter method within 5-6 years anyway, because that, from the workman comp, that's the way they're going.
Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman Brashaw?
Manager Crowe, you say Josh and Denny, are they with Mooring Gills?
One is
Mooring and Gills?
with Gills and one's with Mooring.
Could we speak to them?
Gills is now owned by Waste Connections, which is the second largest hauling firm. I think second largest, right? What? Third largest in the United States.
Manager Crowe, can I specifically ask them questions at the podium?
Sure. Denny and Josh, can you step up?
Good evening, folks.
Good evening. Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Alderman Brashaw. I actually spoke to our garbage collector this morning, a very delightful man. He's my favorite garbage man in the whole world, so very good reputation with me. He works for Mooring, so I'm not sure, I would not like to give his name, but he said that he truly believed this also was the wave of the future. And I asked him if his job would be easier or less easier with these types of trash bins, and he said it's all the same to him, but it'd probably be a little bit easier on his back. So my question to you is it true that if we did do the toters, and that's what I was talking about, I'm sorry, I guess I should have said that first, the concern for me is they would pick up the trash and then come back for recyclables. Would that be the same day if you went with the toters?
Yes, if it was there.
Microphone, please.
Oh.
You have to use the microphone.
If it was their pickup day for recycling, it's like Manager Crowe said, that it'll alternate. See, each section of town will have, or each, like if it's your pickup day is Wednesday, everybody will get their trash picked up on that Wednesday, and then half of them will get their recycling picked up. And there'll be a flyer that goes out and shows you, and it'll have maps, it'll show you the breakdown and stuff. It'll be easy for you to understand. We send out charts that are very clear, and understandable for people.
One more follow-up, Chair.
Yes, please.
Thank you. On the recycling, is it going to be more limited recycling? It was under my assumption that the recycling was going to change from what it is now for pickup.
Currently, we aren't changing anything on it, but we're watching it very close because the markets are very, very volatile right now. It's extremely difficult to get rid of any recycling. To market it right now, it's getting more and more expensive. And it's possible, but we're scratching and clawing to not have to do that, to not have to take recycling away or reduce what we're doing.
One more follow-up.
Can I just add, so I was looking at a recycling flyer from Galena, and they just put out to their residents that they're no longer taking glass as of next month. So it really varies from who your hauler is, but where they can get it rid of. And it's very, when we were doing this negotiation, it's very, basically it's a month to month what they can take.
And one more follow-up. I'm sorry, I keep
Yes,
forgetting who the
please.
chair is. Please forgive me. Back to the picking up the garbage. Do you foresee if we would go into this contract, which it looks like it's a 10-year contract, at a 2% increase? 2.5% increase, that you could still make money on this deal, whether it's the totes or whether it's not the totes, with the increase that's charted?
Yes, I think we've got it set up. You know, we've done the math, both sides, everything. We're comfortable with the progression of the pricing and everything to keep up with the cost of living
With the CPI?
and increase in expenses and things. Yes.
And one more follow-up.
Please.
I'm sorry, I have so many questions. Garbage is a big deal in my neighborhood, and my constituents were asking these very specific questions about if you went to the tote, if the property changed hands, the tote would stay with the property. But what about tenant properties, like if it was a rental property and the water bill is in a tenant's name, then it goes back to the landlord's name, back to the tenant's name? Does that tote and stay just exactly with that property then every time?
It's the intention of the program for the container and the serial number of the container or containers to stay with the assigned address, regardless of who owns them. We would actually retain ownership of the equipment, but yeah, the intention would be to keep, the container at the address it's delivered to for however long the container lasts.
Okay, thank you. And Manager Crowe, I'm sorry. I have a question for you. Since these totes are so large, and I know our ordinances, they're supposed to put the containers out of sight, are they going to be a problem, like to park beside a house, like if it's a
No.
corner house, instead, the corner house has two fronts?
So my previous community, that's where a lot of the people did, was park it on the side of the community, and we will make sure that code enforcement understands that those toters can remain on the outside, because that's part of the equipment to do this. And we actually have some people that we have a few residents that are disabled that they provide these toters and they park them alongside their house right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Fellas, I know it's probably common language for you, but I had so many constituents say, "What's a toter?" Can you pull that into camera view so that way those that are watching can see what they are and kind of do a little demonstration of what you would do, where you would put it, what's expected, that kind of thing? And you can see they're very easy to move.
You're good right
Turn around, turn around.
Except when they're full.
If you have to take them both out, you can pull them like this just as easy. They're that easy to move.
So that hinged side goes towards the curb?
The open side goes towards the curb. The hinge would, oh, I'm sorry, yes, yes. Yes, the handles would go towards the curb.
We actually have a flyer, Mayor, that they've given us, which I think was attached.
Yeah, it is. I
to
just
the-
wanted the
yeah.
viewing audience to know.
So it's, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna send it out. It'll also be at the county fair if if this is the direction. We've set up a booth with the Greater Freeport Partnership, and we're gonna have the flyers out there to talk about along with these two toters, so people can look at them and talk about recycling. We're working with a green group in the community to put a recycling flyer together to educate about recycling too.
Mr. Chairman Parker?
Yes, Alderman Brewer.
Will this equipment result in you changing your trucks? It picks up the with two big gripping arms that will pick it up as compared to now?
Yes, sir, that would be the ultimate goal.
Ultimate goal.
To progress into that, because it's the most efficient and it's the safest. And it's quick.
I've experienced the use of these in another property I'm familiar with, and it's very efficient, very efficient.
Yeah.
I have a question. Would you still use the garbage bags in there, or put this garbage and the recyclables in loose?
We always recommend that the users of these continue to use garbage bags because it just keeps them cleaner, you know. And when they dump, you know, if it's a windy day, if you got everything bagged up nice, you don't have the blowing, things like that.
Okay, second question on that then, if you're, 1 week is, every other week is recycling, every week is garbage. So 1 week, they'd both be out there and you get rid of both of them at the same time, and then the following week, you'd only put out garbage. Is that what the intent?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Alderman Busker.
Actually,
Or-
I think he asked first. so.
Okay, whoever jumps in.
Thank you. I've had experience with these in Monroe with my girlfriend's house. They use them up there. And it seems to be a very efficient system. The one question I have that did create a few issues is these totes, correct me if I'm wrong, are going to have to be set in a specific position by the curb on the road, not in the grass, correct?
It depends. The diagram shows them sitting in the road.
Yeah.
But like if you don't have a curb, then you just set them on the edge of on the edge of the curb.
Okay.
You don't have to set them in.
And if I may follow up, what I'm saying is they have to be on the pavement themselves. And that in some areas has caused issues up there because with limited parking, like if you've got a street that's only got parking on one side or something else, the being able to place these totes in a position where the truck can get them has become problematical in certain areas. Can we, or how can we address that if we go this route?
On that diagram, you may notice that we suggest that if vehicles are present, that the front of the toter be put out to the edge, even with the driver's side of the vehicles, so that it's accessible.
Okay, and if I may continue, one of the issues that we ran into up there, specifically at her residence, is one side of the street was no parking, the other side was, so consequently, everybody parked on one side. And they parked within 6 inches of her driveway, and it was solid all the way down. Where do they put the totes in that situation? Because if you put it in front of the car, you block the driveway, you can't get in, get out. There's no other place to put it. There are, I know there are areas in this community, some in my ward, that this issue might come up. I'm in favor of this. I mean, it's a more efficient system. But I want people to understand there are a few inherent problems that we're going to run into if we go this route.
I could say that I would be better off answering that question, actually seeing the areas that you're talking about, first of all.
Understand.
And secondly, speaking to that, I could say that we've got these out, we've got thousands of these out now, and we haven't run into situations like that we can't, and I know there's situations everywhere. We haven't done it in Freeport, so, you know, there could be unique things, obviously, to the community, so I would like to see the area.
And one final follow-up, don't get me wrong, I am in favor of these because they are a more efficient system. But, you know, I want to make sure that we're going to have a smooth transition and, you know, if there's gonna be any problems, let's address them now, or try to.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Chair? Busker. Busker can go first.
Yeah. Along with, I was looking at the map there, you guys showed that, for one to be on one side of the driveway, one to be on the other, depending on what it is. A lot of driveways in this area are shared driveways, so like I've got an apartment place next to me. There's gonna be 4 on that side, and then my 2 on another side, so I've noticed one's got a lighter colored lid. I imagine those are just different, so you guys will know which one is which, correct? Right. As long as they're accessible by the truck, you're gonna pick them up no matter where they're placed, no matter either side, correct?
Yeah, we just don't want them set side by side, because when our trucks grab them, if they're that too close to each other, it's gonna knock one over. So
Okay.
we just need a little space between them.
Thank you.
Chair? I'd ask Manager Crow, there's an increased cost to doing the toter option. What's the main benefit to the average residents of doing the toter option versus this? And also, if the industry standard's not gonna be for another 5 or 6 years, what is the harm to the city by keeping the current way that we do it right now at the lower cost?
So, one of the reasons why we've looked at the toters to go ahead is because based upon research and also talking with Josh Denny, this will be a cleaner method. And you actually get more trash and garbage in the bags. This also keeps the raccoons out. We have a huge raccoon problem in the city, right? I'm looking at Public Works Director that has to kill and capture his animal control has to kill and capture the raccoons. Let's keep the raccoons out of this. They find it much more difficult. In fact, the story I have is they've actually dumped raccoons into the garbage because they can get in, but they can't get out. But it also tends to be cleaner. It's easier to transport it back and forth to the curb. That's the benefit to going to that. That's why there's a little bit increased cost, because we're paying for these toters.
Chair, follow-up? How's this gonna, right now, when we got obviously our plowing, you have a lot of residents that go ahead and put the garbage kind of like right on the curb and not in the street, and that doesn't impact on this. How is this gonna impact the workers and their plowing?
I'm gonna turn to the Public Works Director on that one.
They're gonna avoid hitting the trash cans. I mean, they won't be able to plow until the trash cans come back in, so they won't be able to get back to the curb line until after that. I know in my former community, once they were done with the trash can would actually get rolled back up into the yard and it would get set there. If that was the case on how it would be now, then it would be, we'd get to the same curb. I mean, we plow throughout the day, so most of the trash cans get picked up before the end of the day. Usually how our plowing goes is we'll knock out the center of the road in the early morning, starting about 4 o'clock. Usually the trash haulers in my neighborhood are there around 5 or 5:30 in the morning. Most of the trash cans are usually picked up sometime midday. That's usually when we start curbing the roads. So the longer the day goes, I mean, the more opportunity we get to curb them. And then the next day, we'd be curbing the other side as well.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
When will we be voting on this? When will you guys be voting on it?
So if you approve it, we'll get to go forward, we'll get the contract negotiated. We needed to determine which way you want to go before we get the final contract in place, and then you'll vote on that, on the contract. We're hoping to have it turned around by the first week in June.
Thank you. Follow up if I could. 3 concerns I have. Okay, and you guys can just check them out is all I'd ask you. You and I had briefly talked about length of contract. The other thing that we talked about is number of houses that we pay for and number of houses that we bill for. There's always a big variance there, and I can, in one respect, see why, okay? The third item is living in a condo association. I know of 50 people that need that trash barrel over there for compost stuff like nothing. You know, I mean, we pay for the whole condo authority to be done. Are you theoretically paying for it the second time? That's, you know, and there's numerous condo situations around. May not apply. Some people may say, hey, but I assume it, Josh, tell me if I'm wrong, the one for yard waste is yard waste, period. You can't dump trash in two?
Correct. The ones that we have out in the city now, we do have some out in the city just for yard waste, or everybody that signs up for the yard waste program gets a yard waste tote.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Alderman Keister.
Thank you. Now, you said you are using this system already in some of your places you pick up. If we decide to go to the tote system, what is the turnaround time or startup time we're looking at? I mean, do you have enough equipment to get us started right away, or how long before we start actually going into this system?
We're looking at actually delivering the containers the last 2 weeks of August if you folks approve. And the program would kick off the 1st of September.
And follow up?
Yes, go ahead.
And you will have sufficient trucks with the arms on it and stuff at that time to be able to meet the requirements?
Most likely, but if we don't, the equipment that we use now is already set up to dump these containers as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, can you tell me what's the responsibility of the person who gets the tote?
We just ask them to take good care of them. We would prefer that they didn't paint on them. Sometimes people will paint their address on them, things like that. We'd prefer they didn't do that. Maybe take a sticker if you got to put it on there. I understand why you would. We normally build a clause into our contracts that say that, you know, they would be responsible for replacing them if they were negligent and like put it too close to the grill and burned it up or melted it, you know. But that's happened once. We've had these out now since like 2010, and you know that's happened once.
Okay.
So that's really, we don't. I mean, if they get stolen, we ask that they leave them. When they move away, that they leave them there.
Yeah.
We like to see that too.
If they get destroyed as negligent, what is the cost to the homeowner for one of them?
Yeah, we charge $75 to replace that.
75.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, maybe I'm not seeing it correctly, but on your proposal for the toter, it also has the every other week recycling, but on the option that is not the toter, it doesn't say anything about recycling. Is that included?
Yes. It would be
So
the
they
exact
both
same
have
program that we have now.
Okay, so it both have recycling. Okay, so my challenge to the council would be just to take a look at those numbers, since, like Alderman McClanathan had said, you know, eventually we're probably going to be, by state law, have to do this, but it might not be for 5 years down the road. So look at those numbers and just make sure that that's really what you think your constituents would want to do, because there is a significant amount of increase in that.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keister.
One other final question statement, I guess. With the recycling, as far as that's concerned, I have been asked by several of my constituents, and I have actually witnessed this myself. We make the effort to separate the trash and the recycling bin, and we watch them throw them both into the same container when they pull the truck up. So why are we recycling when everything goes into the same hopper?
Well, these trucks that we use in Freeport, and I think I can speak for Josh too, both companies use the two-sort vehicles. And the one side, the passenger side of the truck, it has a little bit larger compartment for the trash, and the driver's side has a little bit smaller one, and that's for the recycling. When it dumps, the recycling goes into the top compartment. The trash drops down into the bottom compartment of the truck. That's the only thing I can think of why they would be saying that they're seeing that, because that's, obviously it's not something that we condone. You know, what we spend for these trucks, they're too short for a reason, because we want them to put two different things in them.
And if I may follow up, I understand that, and I've seen the back of them where the separation, but I have watched them throw both the recycling and the trash in the same site.
Okay.
I have actually witnessed this on several occasions. So that's why I'm saying, we go to these, that's not gonna be the same issue. You're gonna have two separate vehicles picking them up, correct?
Well, it'll be done at a completely different time.
Uh-huh.
You know, the garbage will be run, it'll be dumped, and then the truck will go out and run half of its route again on the recycling side.
Okay, thank you. And if I may make one final follow-up, Mr. Chair, having experienced this through my girlfriend's residence up in Monroe, I do know that, you know, taking the trash out, especially the recycling and stuff, this is much, much easier. I know it's a little bit of cost now, but for myself personally, I would have to lean towards these, because as they've already stated, unless you got these things max filled, it's not too hard to put both of them out at the curb at the same time. So I think convenience-wise and stuff, this is better and worth a couple extra dollars than the system we have now.
Any other comments? Okay, what would you like to do with this?
Manager Crowe? Are you looking for a motion to move this forward to a council meeting?
We cannot approve anything here at this, so we would need to move it to the council meeting to approve the toters versus the, versus the garbage, what we're doing now. The usual.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Keister?
make a motion, we move it to the next regular scheduled council meeting with a recommendation to go with the totes.
And you got a second? I think it just died for lack of a second.
Could be my last second.
Okay,
I'd like to make a second.
you're a second now?
Hate to have it
Okay.
die for lack of a
Motion
second.
by Alderman Keister, second by Alderwoman Brashaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So, I
So
don't know
what
how
do
that
we do?
counts.
Just for clarity, council, that doesn't mean that they won't have the option of staying with the non-toter, correct?
Madam Mayor, once we go to toters, it'll be if we go to toters, it'll be toters throughout the community.
Right, I meant for the sake of next week's council meeting?
No, we will not. We'll make the decision at next week's council meeting, whether to go to toters or go to the current.
So this is just putting it on the agenda?
Chair,
Yes.
was there not, with a recommendation, one way or the other?
There was a recommendation.
Right. So I voted no for the recommendation, but I think it passed anyway, though, so there's 2 no votes, right?
So, but my question is, it doesn't eliminate it, correct, by putting it that way? Or are we stuck with just that one terminology?
Make an amendment.
Me on this one.
Ultimately, if the council, because this motion was made with the recommendation for the toters, I think that's what's going to go before you. Ultimately, if that fails, I think you can default back then and still consider the non-toter then.
So would it be better to put on the agenda
Move the ordinance forward.
to tote or not, I mean, to put it as wording as both, so that way we have the option at next week's council meeting to which one are we putting forward?
Madam Mayor, we're gonna have to do one or the other. So if we go with toters, we put it on toters, and we vote that down, then it will automatically goes back to the, that's the way I interpret that.
But it was still 5-2.
I thought you have,
Thank you.
was there someone that didn't vote?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Josh, for your presentation.
I was descending and Peter was descending.
Right.
You were descending or not? She was descending?
I only heard 2 no votes, you and me. I only heard 2 no votes, you and me. So,
Want to verify how many no votes we had. As I vote Can we do that? Need to know who voted no and who voted yes on that, moving it forward. Roll call, yeah.
Parker,
No.
Busker,
No.
Brashaw,
Yes.
Keister,
Aye.
Berberay,
Yes.
Clem,
No.
McClanathan,
No.
Ross.
Yes.
So now it's 4-4. Mayor?
Glad I called for the vote, Jody.
She feels special.
I'd like it to be able to state both, so I'm going to say no.
Okay. So
Mayor,
that motion fails, 5-4.
Chair,
Yes.
I'd make a motion that's, it's be sent to council with both options without a recommendation.
Second. Okay, Alderman Clem seconded, Alderman Clan made the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
One no vote?
7-1.
Mhm.
Moving on to number 9. Discussion of redevelopment agreement with TriStar Metals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have been, as you know, we have been negotiating with TriStar to move their headquarters here from Carroll Stream as well. They have been to expand their facility and add 35 additional jobs, as well as moving the 18 members of their headquarters here. We have reached, Attorney Zito and I have been in discussion with them, along with the Greater Freeport Partnership has been involved in this discussion. Rebecca Motley, TriStar, we submitted them a proposed redevelopment agreement, which they have agreed to, which I am presenting to you, and it will be $100,000 up front and then 25% tax increment off of their additional new building for 10 years. It's a 10-year extension on their current redevelopment agreement. So this $100,000 is the incentive to move their headquarters here, and then it's the 25%. So as we move forward.
Mr. Chair,
Alderwoman Brashaw?
thank you. Manager Crowe, is there currently the $100,000 available in that TIF?
So, yes, we have, I'll, Director Bucus, we have quite extensive, the amount in that particular TIF.
May I ask which TIF that is?
It's the Lamb Road TIF.
Lamb Road. One follow-up.
Yes.
Is it the Lamb Road TIF that is going towards the airport?
No.
Okay. And one more follow-up?
Yes.
The 25% tax increment is based on their sales?
No, the increment is based upon the equalized assessed value of the property. They have submitted plans for a $3.5 million addition within their facility. And in fact, they've gone through the review process and pulled the permit. So if that's what the assessed value of that addition will be, 25% of that.
One more follow-up?
Yes.
Manager Crowe, is this kind of a customary agreement that a large company coming in would make with a city?
Yes, it is, and I'll actually ask Attorney Zito. He's negotiated several of these for other communities.
So this is an amendment to an existing redevelopment agreement, TIF redevelopment agreement that we have with TriStar. So a lot of times the redevelopment agreements will be amended when an addition wants to be put on. The company is expanding, come back and ask for incentive because they're growing. So this is common.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Alderman McClanahan.
Thank you. Council, as you just indicated, this is an amendment, so I didn't have the original in front of me, but I'm comfortable with the language in paragraph 9 about all of their provisions not in conflict or remain in force and effect. However, one provision that I did want to ask on, in the original RDA, is there a provision that they cannot appeal their property taxes during the period of this RDA.
Let me take a quick skim. I have it up.
They also have to maintain a minimum of 65 jobs at that facility.
Okay.
He'll check on the,
Well, could I have while he's checking on that?
Yes.
I know we've talked about the 100,000, many times. Was that in a separate portion of it, or is that encompassed in the cost in Exhibit B? I didn't see it separately in here, so where was that covered?
so the 100,000, it was covered as part of this original agreement. Let me pull up the,
Was that the one that we did previously?
no, it was not. That's an additional one to this one. For, if you go down to, I'm looking for the exhibits here, the RDAs. We may have it, so it costs the additions. Aaron, do you see where that particular point is for the $100,000? Oh, what, you're asking what the original amount was for?
No, where the 100,000 consideration is. I know Exhibit B has the contractor's estimates. I assume that was for reimbursable expenses.
Yes,
It
it
didn't
is.
include the 100,000, but if it does, just let me know.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. Manager Crowe, with this almost $2 million expansion that they're projecting and also adding between 35 and 50 jobs, do you know if these are going to be part-time or full-time jobs?
These are full-time jobs. These are actually, they actually have one of the best paying jobs in the area as we go forward. They have a great apprentice program. They bring the people in, take them through a 18-month to 2-year apprentice program, and then they can reach up to $50,000 pay within 2 years.
Wow. One follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you. And what is the time frame that they're looking for this projection of rebuilding or adding on?
And so that they've already pulled the building permits, so they are still working through a few issues with us on dealing with the drainage within the area. They're getting runoff from the properties around them, and they've asked to add a berm within that area to protect them in their loading docks. But they are planning to start work here shortly.
Okay, thank you.
So as written right now, my recollection was, Lowell, and correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe a cap was put in, but originally I think it was just 25% of the increment generated.
Right.
So if the council is looking to add a cap of up to 100,000, then we can do that.
That was the original negotiated with them, but looks like they didn't, they took that out then, at 100,000. Because we had originally negotiated them with 100,000 going in.
Chair? Yes. That was my recollection.
Yeah.
So I guess we could just clarify between now, we're not passing it tonight.
No,
So,
it's-
and I'm certainly in support of the RDA as a whole. I just want to make sure that we've got the terms ironed out between now and the next time when we
Yeah.
actually vote for approval.
And I'll get back a hold of George on this one.
Okay.
Because that's, when he and I talked on the phone, and Aaron, and Rebecca's here too, that was the agreement between us and TriStar. It was 100,000 up front and then 25%.
Any further?
Right, that was our discussion with them.
Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Peter, are you looking to add that verbiage into that contract that you don't see at this time?
Chair?
Yes.
I'm just want to make sure that all parties are on the same page in regards to what the benefits of the bargain is on the RDA and that it's accurately reflected
Yep.
in the final document. As long as it is on that, I'm wholeheartedly in support of the RDA in principle.
We'll make those changes. I'll get back a hold of George tomorrow, who's their financial officer, and make sure that that's included.
Mr. Chair, follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you. So Manager Crowe, are you looking for us to make a motion to move this forward to the next council meeting with those?
With those
possible
changes, yes, I am.
I would like to make a motion to move that forward to the next council meeting.
I'd second that.
Motion by Alderwoman Bradshaw, second by Alderman Flanagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 10, discussion regarding ordinance amending tobacco sales. Manager Crowe and Alderman Cox. Not here.
So, sorry.
Ta-da.
He just walked in.
Perfect timing.
So,
We're giving everybody a vote tonight.
yeah.
We're in the bullpen.
So I will turn this over to, I'll start it with this. So this, as you know, the state changed the tobacco ordinance as we move forward. So we went back and reviewed our tobacco ordinance, and I will turn with that short introduction, I'll turn it over to Attorney Cox.
Well, hopefully it'll be a short presentation as well. Really, this is just a reaction to the state changing the minimum age for purchase of tobacco products to 21 years of age. Most of the amendments that you see to the ordinance address that. While we were under the hood, though, on this, one of the things that that has not been addressed in our tobacco ordinance is e-cigs. And I think walking around on the street, you see more of those than regular cigarettes anymore, and we didn't regulate those the same. So what we've done is pulled in e-cigs and all those sorts of things, the vape pens, et cetera, into the definition of a tobacco product for purposes of our existing ordinance. So a cigarette or an e-cig is treated the same now under the proposed ordinance. There is also a minor change to the electronic surveillance, and we've tinkered with that ordinance both from the liquor side and from the tobacco side a couple of times. And we're just trying to, because so many things tie into this, we're trying to just get it right. And this is a reaction to some problems the PD has had in terms of being able to get access to footage. So the whole purpose of our surveillance system footage is the ability to assist law enforcement. And one of the keys to that is having quick access by folks that are actually on premises that can get into these things. So if they have a surveillance system but nobody on premises can access it, well, that doesn't do the PD much good when they're trying to track somebody down. So we had a couple instances like that. So what you'll see in 874.13 sub 5 there is basically a bright line that if somebody, so we've given them the option to provide remote assistance. So if somebody's not on site, they can pick up the phone and call. It's a digital age. If we can talk to somebody by phone or in person, doesn't matter as long as they can get you access. But by giving them that leeway, we've also made it a strict enforcement of if it takes more than 15 minutes, well, you violated this section. You know, you're going to get a fine for that because you're not complying with the spirit of this provision. So, again, the takeaways on this is increase the minimum age to 21 across the board, include e-cigs and vape pens and that sort of thing into the definition of tobacco and tobacco products, and again, tweak up the language on the surveillance system. One other thing I noticed as I was just going through this, the state law takes effect July 1. So I would suggest that the effective date of this ordinance also be July 1.
And I guess the one thing is, for everybody to understand, is the state does allow the possession under the age of 21, but it does not allow the purchase of them, where we are, correct me if I'm wrong, we're more restrictive than that on this one.
That's correct. It includes possession as well. So it would be technically a violation of our ordinance to possess under the age of 21 as well as to sell or to purchase.
And Chief Barklow was involved in this discussion, so, as we went forward.
Sure.
Go ahead, Will.
Steve, how does this relate to if we have an establishment that is a non-smoking establishment due to its arrest or not? Now that we've made these two things equal, a person can't use an e-cigarette? It's a definite maybe. Huh?
Great question. This is going to go to purchase and sales and licensing in terms of who has to license. So sales, there's a proximity provision, but usage is still covered by the Smoke-Free Workplace Act. So that's going to say that that anybody anybody that uses a tobacco product. And I believe that does include e-cigs. And again, that's state law.
I mean, can I follow?
Yes, please.
I mean, people do it now. I mean, walk into an establishment with an e-cig and smoke it, you know. I mean, if we're gonna change the rules, we gotta change the rules.
That's certainly something that would be within the, the council's purview if you wanted to address use. Again, as presented, this does not address use in a workplace or a licensed establishment.
And I had always heard, and maybe Todd can enlighten us, that it's really the county that enforces that stuff, not the city, but.
Chair.
Go ahead, yes.
Yeah, I believe that the county health department enforces whether or not, there's a violation about using tobacco or using smoking within a restaurant or another facility like that.
So seeing tonight how we've gotten along so good with the county, last X amount of time, do we put that in ours? Or, I mean, can we?
I think I think that's something that we could discuss going forward. But essentially, this would regulate, the nicotine use, for people under 21, essentially.
My concern is making the city ordinance more restrictive than state. One thing, my own opinion, I'm against the state law being that. You can have a gun and go fight your country, you can have a damn cigarette. But the state law changed that. The possession, I don't like it where people coming into town, because they might be in Sterling Rock Falls, they can do one thing. They come to Freeport, they can't do it because our law is more restrictive. I think we need to mirror the state law. That's just my opinion. Any other comments?
Yeah, Chair.
Yes.
Along those lines, I realized the rationale of mirroring state law. We recently had to do that with the marijuana too, so you didn't have two different outcomes where you're, in violation of a city ordinance, but not state law or vice versa. What was the I don't know what the rationale is on the state of only doing the sale, I think, was it the sale or purchase of tobacco, but not possession. But what's the rationale for doing that at the city level then? Other than it doesn't make much sense just to do sale and use and not possession. What's the rationale?
Todd, do you want to take this?
Sure. Sure. I think what it's going to do is just going to make it a little simpler. I got to be honest that we don't issue a lot of these tickets, and if we do, it's generally a city ordinance violation. We are much more concerned with other activities, whether or not somebody's smoking a cigarette or chewing tobacco or those kind of situations is generally something that it gets attached with another particular crime or another enforcement activity. But I think this, why the state didn't attach this to begin with, I'm not sure that, it's, I personally, don't understand the rationale either, that they would have a sale at 21 but possession keep it at 18, other than it maybe was just inadvertently left off. I'm not exactly sure. I hate to speculate what the state is thinking.
I understand your reticence.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, along with this, I would also like to see the language looked at upon usage, because I've seen it, and I don't know what the statistics are versus e-cigarettes versus tobacco, what the harm is, but I've seen it, people smoking on these e-cigarettes in restaurants and grocery stores, everywhere else. There's children in there. I don't know what the risks are, but I think we should have it. Those should only be allowed, you can't smoke in those places. We ought to make it uniform there.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keister.
I realize that I probably won't be voting on this one, but I do want to say that I have to agree with you that why are we making it stronger than the state law? Why don't we mirror the state law? I agree with your concern about if it's in the state, it's this age, now they move into Freeport, now you're breaking the law. I have a problem with that. I think we need to just mirror the state law and be done with it, not make it more restrictive than what it already is.
Chair,
Yes.
I would ask, for those who had made those comments in regards to mirroring the state statute, are you comfortable with the video requirements, that the changes that were on there and also the inclusion of the electronic nicotine delivery devices?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, what's your pleasure with this then?
Well, we need a motion, and to reflect the change to mirror the state law, with the exception of adding e-cigarettes and to take it to council. Go ahead.
If I may, I'm just looking at the, section 3 of the draft ordinance, section 650.04, B of the codifieds. The suggested change to B, my belief, I think, is we could just remove B from that section, and that would address the council's concerns. So if the council wanted to approve as presented with the effective date of July 1 and omitting proposed 650.04B, I think that would be the sum total of the changes that I would see.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Keister?
I will make that motion to put it back on the council floor, the effective date of July, and give me the number again.
650.04B.
650.04B be striked from the ordinance.
Chair,
Yes.
just to clarify, B, just looking at it, it says buy or possess, right? So we would still leave in buy, wouldn't we? To mirror, if we're mirroring the state statute? Maybe just strike the word possess in there?
We could do that as well. My suggestion, Alderman, is probably just to pull that out and basically decriminalize the activity. That what we're trying to do here is license and govern the section that we're dealing with. License and governs the vendors. So we're controlling the businesses through the city's licensing powers. 650.04B is the only one that really makes it wrong for a minor to do something. Everything else pertains to the licensee. So that's where I'm coming at that section, because it's not necessarily congruent with the rest of what we're doing here from a policy standpoint. But to your point, Alderman, I think just pulling out the possess language from 650.04B would address that issue as well. It's just whether you want to make purchasing criminal in and of, or quasi-criminal in and of itself.
Chair,
Yes.
does the state, the new state law make it that way for buying?
I don't think it doesn't address
It says it's sale, it doesn't say possession.
or
Or
the purchase.
Or the purchase. It's strictly putting the onus on the license holder. It does not put it.
So you're saying the only punishment, the only enforcement activity is on the actual seller? They don't have a provision talking about the buyer in state statute? Okay, well then, I'm fine with your motion.
Second it? You have a second? Alderman Keister made the motion. We have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Ross for second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, number 11, presentation discussion regarding resolution approving downtown Freeport revitalization loan. Andrea Winter and Manager Crow.
Thank you. All right. Good evening. Some of you might be aware, the Downtown Revitalization Loan Fund is a gap financing tool. This was originally talked about through the City Center project about 2 years ago. The initial legs were kind of outlined in that process. Since then, since I became in my position, we've been working, me being Greater Freeport Partnership, working along with the city and the Northwestern Illinois Community Development Corporation, the CDC, kind of fleshing out this framework. So as you can see, the goals there are to really spur redevelopment within the downtown, fully utilize buildings, ground floor for commercial, upper floors if they exist for residential units, and help increase that property and sales tax base. So that's the goals and intent of the process. This is an overview of the process here, a very simplified version. GFP, the partnership, would be in charge of kind of managing the process. We would not be managing the loans. That would be done by the CDC member bank, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But we would have how it would start. A potential loan applicant could be a business owner, building owner, a developer would come approach GFP. We would sit down, we would discuss their project, we would look at their where they're at with their project, what the holes are, do they have a business plan, have they met with a financer, so on and so forth. We would help them connect with those resources. And then part of that connecting with resources would be, do they have a relationship with a downtown revitalization loan fund bank? If they don't have that relationship, then introduce them. They would meet with the bank, talk in more depth about financing, and then if the bank deems that it was a potential project, have them fill out an application. The application would then go before the advisory loan committee review. To review the application, review their financials. If it deemed to be a feasible project, then the city finance director, who is sitting on the advisory loan committee, you can see what the makeup of that committee is over on your right-hand side, would then present it to council. Council would then give final approval, but the onus of all understanding the financials of the project would be on the advisory loan committee. This is just an example, a very simplified example, but what I really want to highlight here is that the fund loan, the city's portion of that loan can be at max 25% of the project loan. So for example, if you have a $100,000 loan, the participant contribution could be at 10%, could be more. This is just for an example. The city's max contribution would be $25,000. The CDC loan contribution would make up the remainder. It's oftentimes that the CDC would not make up the entire remainder, that there would be other grants, SBA loans, USDA loans, to make these projects pencil. This is just a simplified version. This is what the loan fund could be used for: soft cost and hard cost, architectural engineering fees, development, utilities, extension costs, renovation to an existing building or addition to an existing building, and land acquisition or construction of a new facility. So I also have with me Gary Quinn from US Bank, who is a CDC member bank. I am not an attorney, I am not a banker, but I help to relay this information kind of in layman's terms to a potential participant. So if there's very specific questions you have as regards to the loan, I'm going to defer to Gary, but I guess that's all I have.
So when we drafted this, it was Rebecca, Andrea, Chris Schneiderman, myself, Randy Bucas, and Attorney Zito. Aaron sat down and working over this over the last 3 months. As we go forward, for our 25%, there will be a redevelopment agreement come in front of the council. However, it will not have the financials. The financials will be covered by the bank, and they'll be looking at it. Our redevelopment agreements will deal with following of city codes, ADA codes, fire codes as we go forward. Any adjustments we need to do within a particular street area for the business connection fees, things along that lines.
Chair. This has been a long time coming, multiple years, and this really is, as far as I can tell, is the final step before implementation on this, because we've had discussions over what is, it started off with a discussion as to how do we best make use of the remaining life of the downtown TIF, which led to the bonding out, which has already happened from the city funds. So this is just our last portion here of saying how is it going to run and how is it going to operate to spur redevelopment and reinvestment in the downtown area with some of that downtown TIF, and then also the partners, as we mentioned, who are here, that's referenced by the GP. So I guess the only question I have, because we've spent many meetings discussing, what does this look like, and this is just the final step on it. You had GFP at the table, you had the NICDC at the table, and you had the city at the table, and everybody put this together and is comfortable with the final language that was presented to us?
From the city standpoint, yes.
Okay, well, good. I look forward to seeing this money being utilized then.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Alderman Bradshaw.
Thank you. I see they start with the Greater Freeport Partnership. Is the Greater Freeport Partnership going to be the one that advertises this to the local businesses and to the people that are wishing to develop?
Correct. So we'll provide this information to CDC banks. It'll be on our website. We'll actively promote this. That's part of our role, is to make sure that people know that this is a tool that's out there and we want people to use it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Busker.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea, but I hate to be the naysayer, but I was just wondering, how does the loan get paid back? Does the city's portion get paid back at the same time as the other portions, or how does that work? Or if someone defaults, who gets paid first?
So the city, the banks actually is the collection agency for all of us. And the bank is the principal holder. If they default, this is when they get paid first, we're second with that payment as we go forward. And I'm talking, Gary's.
It doesn't seem quite fair.
The goal of this is not to take a stinky loan and make it smell sweet. This is for somebody with a good business plan who has a shortfall in collateral. When you look at some of these downtown buildings, they are going to require more investment in them than the value on an appraisal will ever show. So to incent a lender to be involved in this, you have to lower everybody's risk. You heard about the CDC in this? Well, that's where the banks have set aside money and have been doing so for 20 years. And that becomes the last money out of a deal. So yeah, the bank loan would get paid and the city would get their RLF money paid, but the last money to be paid would be bank money. So we want to have skin in this game too.
Mr. Alderman Bourret. The city's portion is 25% of the loan, and how much are we gonna budget for this? Is there a dollar amount in the budget now that's gonna be so much money and we'll prioritize?
So we have $1 million that we've bonded for.
Okay.
And that is set aside, so that 25% will go up until it's gone. Each project varies in size. Right. And the whole idea is to spur development in the downtown. So the 25% is to cover that, provide that gap financing. The banks, they would normally need, and again, I'm not a banker, but they would normally need 25 or 35% up front. So we're covering that.
Okay. Thank you.
And Chair. So along that lines, then, there is no, I mean, the money is there and is dedicated. It's not an extra budgetary item that we're gonna need to account for in a given year.
In fact, maybe move it forward from last year because we bonded.
Right.
So ready to execute it, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
The goal and the hope and the structure of this is because the bond is being repaid by TIF proceeds. As the loans are granted and as the loans are paid back, and yes, as the city earns the hope is that this fund can grow. We've looked at a couple of models in the state, and we compete against cities about this size that have $5 and $6 and $10 million revolving loan funds. So we're going to go from 0 to $1 million, and that's a beautiful thing.
So the marketing breakup of that interest that's paid back, it comes 25% of that interest that's paid back goes to the Greater Freeport Partnership to help them for the administrative cost and the marketing of this.
Chair,
Flanagan?
I move that we send this to the next council meeting, regularly scheduled council meeting with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Clanahan, second by Alderman Busker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next one is number 12, presentation of street scamping plan, whatever that is. Andrea's got that one too.
I'll keep it brief. This is a little bit longer than 4 slides, but I'll go as fast as I can. This is really an update. A couple years ago, I stood before you, or part of you, to present a Chicago Avenue streetscape plan. What I'm here is to tell you how that plan is informing some of the decisions and goals that we're making, the short-term goals we're making within the downtown right now. So we had a vision, we've identified some short-term goals, we've made a plan, and we've prioritized what we're gonna go after. So this is an excerpt that I presented to council a couple years ago. This is, if it works correctly, is a run-through. This is a very quick overview of Chicago Avenue after the entire streetscape project is done. So you're starting at the north end. This is some gateway signage. This is US Bank Building to your right, the municipal parking lot. Sorry, this can get a little disorienting. You have the library there, trees that don't exist in the background. To your right, you're gonna have the Art Plaza at full build-out. But what I'm doing to illustrate to you is that we're not talking about we're gonna do all of this work in 2019. I want you to identify, or what we've identified is the short-term goals that GFP, along with some in-kind services with the city and cooperating or working in partnership with the downtown businesses. These are short-term goals that we can do, such as planters, some identifying downtown banners, as well as updating some streetscape furniture. So again, this is a concept for at full build out once infrastructure has been overhead electrical lines have been buried. We've replaced water and sewer infrastructure. That trigger for that project won't get pulled for a number of years. But this was the Chicago Avenue Arts Plaza. That's why you're seeing a highlighting of a lot of murals. And I promise if I present this to you one more time, I'll put it to music. But really, you see streetscape furniture, a lot of planters put at corners, areas of high visibility, banners at every light pole or every other light pole, really trying to define that downtown district, especially giving a visitor a sense of identity of where they're at in the downtown. It's really easy for us. We live here. This is our home. We know where everything's located. The idea is to create an environment that is aesthetically pleasing for everybody, but that helps a visitor really orient themselves throughout the downtown. So here we are at the south end. So from here, as we talked about short-term goals, we're talking about defining a focus area. We have a rather large geographic downtown, especially for the size of the community that we are. So really focusing our efforts on the area of concentrated business and activity. So defining that core area, again, thriving vegetation. When you have plants that are thriving and out, so that means somebody cares enough to water them and take care of them. We're going to remove some of the old street furniture. We're going to provide banners, and we're looking at new litter receptacles and benches. So this is a holdover from the plan we just looked at. We had identified a street furniture family that we're going to implement. Some of you already see that there are some black strap metal benches and garbage cans within the downtown. It would just be more of the same type. So we talk about this downtown core focus area, Exchange to Main, Galena to State, and along Chicago Avenue. Again, this is not saying that we want to neglect or that we don't understand that our entire downtown is very important, but we're trying to concentrate our efforts and be strategic with the resources we have. The goal would be to extend throughout the entire downtown over time. So the first thing we needed to do is we needed to figure out what's already there. There are a couple things that became readily apparent. We have 3 different types of streetscape furniture family. And for people who this is not your wheelhouse, I understand how incredibly boring this is. But we have different models and makes, all in different condition within the downtown. We also have ample amounts of garbage cans, more than is necessary. So one of the initiatives we talked about was planters. We have 9 existing black strap metal flower pots, and we have had in the past and are going to reinstall this year 20 hanging baskets. The map you see in front of you would be the locations that those would be installed. So this is a quick rundown of what the cost associated with that is. It's about $3,800. I want to point out that in past, some of the difficulty in achieving and keeping vegetation thriving throughout the summer months is watering. So the city's been a great partner in the fact that we're going to have 2 downtown employees dedicated to maintenance, upkeep of this throughout the summer. Do you want to?
We're struggling with, we had hired 2, and we're struggling with them showing up to work on time and going through the same struggle that many businesses are right now. So we're continuing to work with Hughes Resources to make sure that we can get the proper people to maintain these downtown.
So moving on, this is how it's breaking out in expense. I would say that the downtown business owners have been more than generous and come to the table, and they've ponied up $1,500 for this effort. They understand how important this is. Having this, it's a great thing for the entire downtown. It's aesthetically very nice. Everyone enjoys it. GFP is also contributing as well. Next thing, we're looking at banners, recommending some of the best practices, how the banners are composed. I think I can explain a little bit more, but I think you all understand what I'm talking about when I say banners. They're attached to light poles, but they really help identify a district. So we're in the process of designing those right now. This is an example done in Uptown Normal. They've gone through a rebranding process within their downtown, and this was a really nice example of how they carried the signage and their brand throughout the entire downtown, and allowing for some variety. So we're looking at number of banners by block. You'll see that this is concentrated again in that downtown core area. It extends a little bit further on east and west to Stevenson, and we're making sure that we're hitting Galena. We understand where you see the most traffic, and we want higher visibility. And I guess to your right, or the picture on the right, that's the 2 poles that are sticking out perpendicular to the pole. That's what the banner would go on. I'm in the process now of going through and doing an audit to make sure that there are brackets for the banner on the poles that we want them on. This is the cost associated with that, about $5,000. I'm budgeting the fact that there's probably going to be some brackets that are missing or they're broken, and that we're going to need to replace them. Looking really quickly at streetscape furniture, again, this diagram is a holdover from the Chicago Avenue streetscape plan, looking at where we need to put furniture, considering where cars park, making sure that we're not having a bench where a car door is going to open, things like that. And also looking at recommended, at maximum, you should have one litter receptacle for every 200 feet. Our blocks are not uniform in size. Some are about 200, some are up to 350 feet long. Putting a litter receptacle at the corner is ideal. It can be used then and identified and visible from both directions. So if we were to go through and replace all the streetscape furniture, this is what it would look like. And this is obviously a very quick diagram, but I have circled 6 new litter receptacles and 2 new benches, excuse me. I have secured a grant from the Community Foundation of Northern Illinois for $2,500. GFP is able to match that amount. We're going to then leverage that $5,000 and work with business owners to raise another $2,500 so that we can secure the 2 new benches, 6 new litter receptacles this year and get those installed. When we install new litter receptacles, the idea is we're not just adding more furniture, we will take out old furniture that we don't need. The idea is to start taking away, getting rid of the concrete aggregate, cylinder trash cans, and square trash cans as well. And we're working with the city on how that's going to get done. So this is the furniture that would go in place. And if needing to know what the overall cost, if we're going to replace all of it, that at what the price per unit is right now, you're looking at $42,000. This isn't going to happen all this year, but we need to know what the target is. We need to know if we're going to raise money, then how much money we're going to raise, and be strategic about it. So we wanted to look at the overall plan and then figure out this is priority number 1, 2, and 3, and break it into smaller pieces. That's all I have.
Now, Andrea, I saw your note this morning. Steve Schlemp's already installed the hanging brackets for all of the...
He has, and so that budget number, the bracket cost, so there had been some existing brackets for the hanging baskets. Those were, they're not properly sized, so they weren't large enough and they weren't strong enough to support the weight. They are getting replaced. Steve Schlamp found a great model, a new bracket, and installed them on his own time. And so the cost estimate I had for brackets is drastically decreased, which is wonderful. Then we'll use that contribution. That money will then get probably forwarded over to the banner effort. So sorry, yeah, that presentation didn't reflect those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
Chair. So you're giving us obviously an update and kind of a view as to where you're looking to go.
Correct.
What city action and involvement are you going to need down the road outside of the in-kind services that were mentioned?
So it's going to be removed. I'll ask Director Carr to talk a little bit about this on some of the requirements.
So most of the exposed aggregate benches and trash cans that are down there are heavy enough that they're freestanding. So most of those are just scoop up and haul away. So then we end up paying a disposal fee on that unless we can bust them up and use them as like a crush rip wrap along some ditch banking. All of the black strap equipment is all bolted down. So to take those out and move them around is going to be, grinding off bolts and then making sure they're flush mounted to the ground and then shifting them over and then re-tap conning them into the concrete.
Just follow-up, Chair.
Yes.
I guess the idea will be that the administration and GFP will be working pretty close hand in hand on that.
So this is being run through the beautification committee, and we as a city sit on either myself or Director Bucas or Director Zomkov will be at all the beautification meetings, so we're working hand in hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 13, public comments. Same rules apply with 3 minutes.
Thank you, Rich Hoffmaster, once again. Several things were said out here tonight about the ordinance that's been put in front of you, and I agree with you, sir, Mr. McClellan, that the council will be responsible for the action taken, but it was the city manager's job to bring it to you in the form of an ordinance or recommendation on what to do. And in doing so, he should have presented you with all the facts that it's going to pros for the city, what it's going to benefit the city, and how it's going to affect the citizens of the city and of the county who are being annexed in. Sitting here watching everything tonight, I still see there's a lot of questions, a lot of issues that haven't been addressed. Leaf pickup. You're not going to pick up leaves by Dwayne and I's house. We live on a county road, speed limit 55. There's no place to put them, and if we did, traffic going up and down there with a little wind, they're either going to end up back in his yard or in mine. You know, it's a no-win situation. I have 40 trees on my property. I'm all going to put them all on that highway. The totes that he was talking about won't work there either. I got a lot of things I want to respond to. But when it comes to taxes, I will tell you, everybody gets a tax bill every year. And on there it lists all the taxing bodies and where your money goes to. Several of them are city. There's some that money goes, some money goes to county, to the township. My taxes will go up $800 a year, over $800. I've talked to Mr. Crow, I've talked to the city assessor. I will still be paying Silver Creek Township roads, as well as where it's included in the city. I have a letter here from a Mr. Joseph Apple who emailed me after the last council meeting. He saw me. He moved into Freeport. 2 years later, he was annexed into the city. His taxes doubled. I pay $5,600. That's a lot. I'm going to go up $800. I've talked to Mr. Crow. I've talked to the city assessor. That's a big jump for me. I'm retired. Okay. Also, my taxes will go up on utilities and other things. I won't get a lot of the benefits that the city provides. I understand, Councilwoman Brashaw, annexing people into cities sometimes makes sense. You build a bunch of houses out around me and you provide all them services out there, well, it's nothing just to include me in them services, don't cost you anything. Dwayne's property and mine are south of the creek. There's not a property, not a house to the east, to the south, or to the west of me that's in the city. And I'm a quarter of a mile away from what used to be city limits. I know where the city limits were. They were to the north of me. The city dump, the city, the county, other things got annexed around me. We can't control that. No properties. You build buildings around me, then annex me. Septic, for me to put in septic, if my septic fails, I have to go 100 and some yards to the north, underneath Yellow Creek, and into the septic, which is on the north side of the creek. I can't imagine the cost of what that's going to be. It's going to be more than what I can afford. Okay, I can't afford that.
Your 3 minutes is up, Rich.
Anybody want to give me 3 minutes?
Well, I don't think it works that way on the end process, but I could ask the attorney.
I just have a couple more things.
We've been allowing it, so I would allow it since we've been doing it so time. So.
Yeah.
In lieu of another person? So who is forfeiting their time, just so we can put it on the record? Linda, you're not going to speak? Okay, so in lieu of,
Well, go ahead.
so in lieu of him, you're
Hey,
fine?
if I haven't raised enough issues to come out and sit on my property and talk more about it, well then, I don't know where we're headed. But this is absolute, and I'll leave it alone at that. And if I don't do it, I'll be violating the law. You'll make me a criminal.
Looking at some of the things we brought up, if the city of Freeport's going to annex all these people in, I believe the city of Freeport would have a responsibility to supply water and sewer to those places. In order to do this annexation, all of you should be well informed of what costs are going to, what are the taxpayers? I'm a taxpayer in Freeport. What costs are going to be involved that I'm going to be responsible for? I heard over here that the sewer is gonna be a major problem. We don't know what the estimates are on that. We don't know how much that's gonna cost us. There are questions out there on how much they're saying we're gonna make money on this. I think there's gonna be some expenses that haven't been told to you. You haven't researched into this. I'm not saying, hey, okay, you're rushing into this to say, okay, we gotta throw it to a vote and we gotta vote on this. We gotta vote yes. No, you don't have to. What you need to do is do more research on this and give us some more better information. Me as a taxpayer, number one, and number two, me as a business owner in one of the donut holes, I learned a little bit more information tonight, but I don't have all the information. I don't know, all the questions that are gonna be involved. A lot of you aren't aware that this property came up for sale, absolute auction, highest bidder. Anybody could have bought it. I didn't plan on buying it. I liked the building, I knew how much money I had to spend, and we bought the building. Buying that building, it was empty for probably over 15 years. Everybody knows what it looked like. It didn't look good. Our responsibility was to fix it up, to make it look good for the corridor coming into Freeport, even though we weren't part of Freeport. It wasn't just put a piece of paint on it. The vision that we got on what we wanted to do with it was not just jump in and get a gaming license and go in there. We had to change it from a dry township, get it changed over. I went to talk to 150 plus people in Silver Creek Township. We got it changed over. We did a bunch of hurdles. That was my life, my dream. I did a lot of work. I put all my own money. I didn't ask for any TIF money. That was all our hard-earned money, that we invested in that. And I just hope we get to keep it.
Thank you, Brian.
Next.
Ben Eiler, kind of going off what Dad said, I mean, there seems like a lot of, what are the expenses going on? I'm a financial planner, guys. I mean, you guys should be looking at the numbers. How much is it going to cost for the sewer systems to be installed? What about the fire hydrants? Who's going to pay for that? How much does it cost? We don't know. We don't have the answers, but yet we're going to vote. We're going to vote, we're going to annex it in, we'll figure it out afterwards. What if the money's not there? What if it's not in the budget? What if you can't make good on those commitments? I put a lot of money in that gaming lounge. We went, got our liquor license, we paid the fees. Sorry, we're not in Freeport. I knew I wasn't in Freeport. I obeyed the laws. I got my county liquor license. I got my state liquor license. I went and got my gaming application. I'm 100% legal, in the clear, opening a business. And now you guys are just, hey, annexing it, and you guys don't know how much it's going to cost to install the sewers, install the fire hydrants. So again, I think we're moving a little quickly on this. And how am I supposed to know what's going to happen next year when I go to the city for the liquor license? So pretty much you're saying I can open through the end of the year. What happens next year? You guys can just say, sorry, screw you. Not going to give you the license. Even though I put in all that money, all that time. I knew what I was doing. I'm in the county. I'm not in Freeport. You guys are telling me I have to be in Freeport, and I have no promise that I'm going to have a liquor license next year. So that's what I want. I want a promise that I'm going to have a liquor license if you guys annex me in. I did not choose to be in Freeport. Thank you.
Okay, my main thing is, I'm a taxpayer. Who's gonna pay for all this stuff? Who's gonna pay for this annexation? Okay, your constituents, which I'm not assuming. I'm presuming they're people, just like me. Like, I have an alderman, and I can go tell him, blah, 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 blah. Oh, will do. Okie dokie, now we're here with your constituents, what they say. They just say, I don't want gambling, I don't want gambling. But did you say, excuse me, there's $18,000 you're gonna get. That if you don't get $18,000, it's gonna come out of my tax dollar, yours, or where is this gonna come? Another grant? Oh, and when you do pay taxes, what is this beautification crap? Let's use that dollars. You must not be in at least a third of Freeport with all these houses that are going down. And then, do you think an empty lot looks good? What happens, Mr. Police Guy, when you have an empty lot? You have to keep a police car there because all these people don't have a house and they're just wandering around. And then you have me going, now what are those guys over there in the black hoodie? We got a camera on him, but he's in a black hoodie. So anyway, I want to know, who's going to pay for it? I'm only paying for this. I'm paying for water, and I'll tell you what, if this is city's going to pay. You're not going to say, oh, well, we can't do that. It'll be done in 50. No. You want it? You got it. And I'll tell you what, I guess that one Raleigh farm better have a fire hydrant. And you know who's going to pay for that frickin' fire hydrant? Excuse my language. Me, I don't care what's happening here. I don't care what's opening in here. I do care about a strip joint. These lounges are far from a strip joint. Especially when you see this building, and you all know, unless you're really blind, you all know how much of a betterment that did to that whole South Street. And don't tell me you just now, this is about census. I took census 2 times. That's 20 years. The numbers are just full of baloney, number one, I already know. If you don't answer the door, you can't answer my questions, number one. Number two, you could be lying. I saw it all. 10, 20, not the last one, but the last other 2. Now, this year, they already know. Guess what? We need to do it on the computer. Whoa. I'm going to do it on the computer, not. They're already saying all the people that are going to hack into your thing. That sounds like we're going to have a real honest census. So in other words, we're going to have one good census. Congratulations, congratulations, all you. And now next year, what's going to happen? Now you don't have 2 new businesses. Now you have all these annexes that I'm going to pay for like as if I care about out by the fairgrounds. I go there once a year to the fair. These people, your constituents, better know what you're voting on, not just I don't want gambling. They don't know. They don't know the money. He gave the money dollars. I want to see some money from you. How much is it going to cost the city? And when I say the city, I mean me. You can't answer. That's like HIPAA. They can take your wrong leg off. They're HIPAA. I can know that they took your wrong leg. I can't say a darn thing. I can't say anything. HIPAA. Just like you guys. You can go all discuss it. We're still, here's our life.
Thank you, Linda.
This is life. But I got 3 minutes.
Thank you.
All right. That's it, right? No more chances.
My name is Pam Manis. I'm part of the Silver Creek Township. I'm the clerk out there. I just want a little clarification. You had mentioned something about Steve Frick and the county board being involved in this, or your discussion. I'd just like a little clarification. Is that what you said?
I can talk to you.
All right.
Any other public comment? Okay, step up there, Tom.
I want to tell you, Tom Bago, you do a good job. I don't care what they say to you, because you could do anything with the police department. We don't care what they, like if you find somebody with drugs and stuff, you take care of that quick. You know how to do it. I don't care what they said over here. And I want to tell Don Parker do a good job on all the men in Freeport.
Thank you, Tom.
And Joey, don't forget that thing on Fabina on Wednesday.
I'll be there.
Okay, that's it. We got a motion for adjournment.
So move.
By Keister. Second by Ross. All in favor? Aye.